Williams. I'm the chair of the Program and School Services Committee. Here beside me is our vice chair for this committee, Trustee King, and the trustees on the committee who are in the room, Trustee Dawson, Trustee Goes online, Trustee Luca Rothman in the room as well. Welcome. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement. I'd ask everyone to please stand as we make the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Please be seated. So the first item is approval of the agenda. If I could have a mover and a seconder for approval of the agenda. I think we have an amendment.
Thank you, through your chair. Just in consideration of a potentially long evening and knowing that we have one item that involves our student trustees, I'd like to move just a reorder of our written notices of motion for consideration so that the review of current financial literacy would come before the annual reporting on student attendance.
Thank you. So just a mover and a seconder for the agenda as amended. Moved by Trustee King, seconded by Trustee Luca Rothman. All in favor, just a show of hands. Ayes. Aye. Any opposed? And that carries. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Seeing none, we'll move forward. So we have a number of delegations this evening. And before I call the first delegate to provide the delegation, I'd just like to provide a friendly reminder to everyone of our board's code of conduct and the expectation that the meeting be conducted in a civil and respectful manner. So that is the expectation. So we're going to call our first delegate. And just as instruction for all of our delegates, I'll be calling the delegates to sit at the table that's at the front of the room. There's a microphone there, and I ask that you speak into the microphone so the folks online can also hear you. You'll have 3 minutes to provide your delegation. When there is 1 minute left, you'll hear a little chime, and that's just your indication that you have a minute remaining. After you finish your delegation, please remain seated. There may be questions of clarification from the trustees in the room or the trustees online. And this is also just a friendly reminder to trustees that we are only asking questions of clarification only. So having said that, I'd like to welcome our first delegate to the table, Sam Lampert, a student, I believe.
Hi.
And I'm going to ask those online to please mute. Make sure you're muted.
Am I muted?
Just so the delegates are not interrupted during their delegation. Everyone online, please remember to remain muted. Welcome, Sam Lampert. And you may begin your delegation.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam, and I'm a grade 8 student at CHBS Middle School. I am proudly Jewish. My entire ancestry descends from Eastern Europe, where my family had to flee because they were Jewish. They came here for a better life. And within each generation since, we have had to deal with anti-Semitism. Last year, I traveled to Lithuania with my grandparents, parents, and siblings to visit the village where my grandmother's family came from that had been a thriving Jewish community. It was heartbreaking to stand next to the mass grave of Jews who had been brutally murdered during the Holocaust. During my 5 years at CH Best, I have been targeted and marginalized by anti-Semitism. Here is a short and incomplete list of some of my experiences. On multiple occasions, people have thrown money at me and said, "Go get it, Jew." I have had other students give me the Hitler salute. I've been sent Holocaust-denying memes on Snapchat. I was told, "You should have been gassed with your ancestors, Jew, and free Palestine, kill Israel." There are 2 staff members at my school who since October 7th have worn keffiyehs. They have also worn hateful shirts that have the map of Israel with a watermelon, also known as the Palestinian flag colors, superimposed on them. They had artwork on their doors in red, green, and black with pro-Hamas propaganda on them. I thought that schools were supposed to be politically neutral and safe for everyone. Another staff member at school told me that while Hamas represents something negative for me, other students could see Hamas as liberators and freedom fighters. I remind you all that Hamas has been listed here in Canada as a terrorist organization since 2002. I've had nightmares of specific students and teachers trying to break into my home and kidnap me. We have spent so much valuable time in school studying many different forms of racism. I personally have benefited so much from this education. I have patiently waited to see how anti-Semitism would be approached, and yet there has been no time devoted to it. Ultimately, I do not feel part of the school community as a student or as a Jew. I will not be attending my graduation trip or my graduation ceremony. That said, I am not afraid anymore. I have gained a lot of confidence to speak out because I can and I need to. There are many children in the TDSB like me who are going through this. Every time we watch the news right now, we see examples of what happens when seeds of hate are not dealt with. Vandalized synagogues, Jewish schools being shot at, encampments with horrific hateful messages. I hope the TDSB commits to a proper long-term strategy for education on anti-Semitism for students, staff, and administrators. I fear for my generation and what they will be like as adults. Education is the first step to eradicating hate. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation, Mr. Lampert. Do I have any questions of clarification? Trustee Loka-Rothman?
Thank you. Sam, thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing your experiences with us. I know that that cannot have been easy for you. My first question is, these incidents that you described for us, your short and incomplete list, were these incidents reported to school administrators?
Thank you for the question. So about 2 years ago when this initially started, I reported a couple incidents, and the students who were involved were suspended, and they came back, and I was bullied horrifically for a couple months, called names like a snitch, excluded from fun activities. So I don't feel comfortable anymore repeating. So for the past year, 2 years, I haven't reported anything. And to be clear, I didn't want punishment for these students. I think that punishments don't change behavior. I think that those students needed to learn and why their comments were hateful and not okay. So I haven't reported anything in a while.
Because you didn't feel comfortable reporting?
Yeah, I didn't feel safe doing so. Because I was told by the admins that no one would know it was me. Somehow they figured out that I reported this, which is not okay, and I was bullied. So I'm not comfortable anymore.
Wow. You mentioned that you're in grade 8, but you're not, you don't feel part of the community, that you won't be attending your graduation. What are your plans for next year?
Thank you. Next year, I will be attending a Jewish high school near my house. I don't have any desire to go to TDSB school. I don't feel safe anymore, and it's not an option. I'm well aware of the risks going to Jewish school. The school I'm going to has been evacuated multiple times this year for anti-Semitic bomb threats. And students have been targeted with muggings, like robbery, and other anti-Semitic attacks by former CH Best students. who I think have been failed by the system and by the school board. Just not hateful people, but they could have been different with education. They're very ignorant, and it didn't have to happen.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
Can I also ask if you would provide your delegation in a written form as well so we can circulate it for the rest of trustees who are not here tonight?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Trustee Chernos-Lynn.
I want to start by saying I'm so sorry that that happened to you, and that shouldn't be happening in our schools. So I want you to know that that is completely unacceptable, and we will be taking that back. But I also want to know from you, what do you think could have been done differently in your school? What would have helped?
Thank you for the question. I think there's a lot of different levels of what could have been different. Starting, like, I think administrators have to be more aware. When you go to someone for help, they need to know, they need to be educated. So do the students. Students have to know why that's not okay. And it shouldn't be the administrator's job. It shouldn't get to that point. Students should know in a classroom already. They should learn about this and know why it's not okay to spread hate and to talk to people like that. So I think there's many levels where this could have been handled differently. Thank you.
And my second question for you, maybe I missed this at the beginning. Are you in grade 8 or grade 6?
Grade 8.
Grade 8, okay. Has your school had any anti-Semitism or Holocaust education training? Like, have they had a survivor come in and talk or anything like that that you're aware of?
Yeah, so over the past couple of years, so twice this year we had presentations from Holocaust survivors, which I think is amazing. It's very important to learn their stories because soon we won't be able to hear it directly from them. But that's great, but I think a lot of the problem with anti-Semitic incidents is it's not about the Holocaust. People don't understand anti-Semitism. People don't know that what they're saying is wrong. So the Holocaust education is great and it needs to stay, but we need much more about anti-Semitism, just like anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, everything. It needs to be more.
Okay, and I know this is not a clarification, but if you'll indulge me for a minute, I just want to say thank you for coming and sharing your experience. It's really important that we hear that student voice, so thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more? Thank you. And again, thank you, Mr. Lampert, for coming in and delegating to us this evening. It's very important when we hear from students directly.
Thank you.
We're moving on to the second delegate, Donna Harrow, Ripple Effect Circle.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donna Harrell, and I'm lead of the Ripple Effect Circle. I'm here today to tell you, or maybe remind you, a little bit of myself, to tell you a little bit about the Ripple Effect Circle, and also to tell you about my experience with the literacy and numeracy program that I worked with the Toronto District School Board in the past year and a bit to offer to students who go to school within the Toronto District School Board. So some of you might remember me as someone who was the co-founder of the Afrocentric School. I worked with the Toronto District School Board in the pre-kindergarten program for Black students. And I've worked inside and outside of schools with the Safe Schools Department, and in looking at sessions with staff of the Toronto District School Board to look at how they work with Black students, Black families, and with the community. The Ripple Effect Circle came out of an organization called the African Canadian Coalition for Community Organizations. And that came about in the year of the gun, when many organizations decided to come together to look at how we could lessen violence within the city. The Ripple Effect was born out of that, and we've since then worked with sectors that believe influence affects the lives of our young people. We work with education, of course. We work with child welfare, with policing, with unions, with corporations, and we come together to work together to develop systems that will work towards the success of young people. We at the Ripple Effect, and me personally, we were very, very happy and grateful to be a part of the program that came from the Safe Schools Department in the Toronto District School Board.
Ms. Harrow, my apologies, but your 3 minutes have expired. If you would wait for a moment, we'll see if there are any questions of clarification in the room from trustees. Trustee Dawson?
Thank you through the chair. Thank you for coming. You mentioned that you were pleased to be a part of the Safe Schools Initiative. I wonder if you could elaborate on that, please.
Excuse me for 1 second. If you could speak a little louder. I have issues with my hearing.
Okay, yes, and it is very echoey in here. You mentioned that you enjoyed being a part of the Safe Schools program. I wonder, could you elaborate on your participation in the Safe Schools program?
Right. So the Safe Schools program, the Toronto District School Board, through the funding from the ministry, provided a literacy and numeracy program for students who attended the Toronto District School Board.
Okay, and what would you like to see happen with that program now? Is it ongoing?
Okay, so we had an amazing program. We not only had literacy and numeracy, but we had many other enrichment type programs that would keep the students engaged. This is a program that needs to be continued, absolutely. When students came to the program, they might have been in grade 1 or 2, and they were at a kindergarten level. Right now, I'm pleased to say that those students are now at a grade 3, 4 level, reading really well, doing sciences, things that they wouldn't have done on a regular basis to keep them engaged. I would like today that the board receive more funding. I know that there is a budget crunch, but I believe that these students who will reach to grade 12 and will, if they reach to grade 12, will not be able to read at a certain level if we don't do it in a way that we did it in this program, this literacy and numeracy program, because this is to save kids from dropping out of school. I would like to see an amount of money that will take us from now into the summer and through to 2025 and onwards.
Thank you. Your time has expired, Trustee Dawson. Trustee Hassan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Trustee Hassan here from York Southwestern. First and foremost, Donna, I want to thank you for your deputation and your courage for coming forward. I really appreciate it. Your reputation in community speaks volumes, and I've come to have heard of your name through the past 10 years plus, especially with your amazing and magnificent work you've done on the Somali Task Force. So I want to thank you for that. That program has done volumes for my community who has faced an abundance of struggles through systematic barriers in our education system. So once again, I want to thank you for that. I do have a few questions here for you tonight. Donna, what do you think we can do as a Board of Trustees to address the issue of community violence?
First of all, I would like you to look at the root causes of that violence in community. I think it is important for you to look at the root causes because those students who come into your school and exhibit violent behaviors, they come from the trauma that's caused from the systemic oppression. And I would love the trustees to be able to vote tonight, to move a motion to be able to put at least $1 million into the work that is done with the Safe Schools Department to look at those issues, to make sure that those issues are rectified or at least worked on so that the effect on our young people is lessened. It is crucial. It is crucial because a lot of us here are not in the streets or visit the homes of these young people who are affected by systemic racism in the city and more specifically in the schools.
Thank you, Donna. That's very much appreciated. That's it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Thank you for your delegation, Ms. Harrell.
Thank you.
The next delegate, Orlando Bowen, One Voice, One Team, Youth Leadership Organization. Online. Is it *6 to unmute?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Orlando Bourne. I'm the founder and executive director at One Voice, One Team, Youth Leadership Organization. We run programs
Just speak a little bit louder, Mr. Bowen. Thank you.
Pardon me?
Just speak a little bit louder.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Orlando Bourne. I'm the founder and executive director at One Voice, One Team, Youth Leadership Organization. We have been running youth leadership programming officially since 2008, unofficially since 2001. We've got programs that we run in the Greater Toronto area as well as Hamilton, Winnipeg, and we've done work internationally around creating and protecting brave spaces where young people can identify and then use their gifts and talents to pour into others from a leadership perspective. So I'm grateful, honored to be in this space, though albeit virtually with you today. I want to thank Trustee Dawson for her support. I also want to thank the Safe and Caring Schools for their support. The reason why we do the work is because we've seen the gaps and the discrepancies with respect to achievement of racialized youth. I'm going to touch on 3 areas: care, connection, and community. With respect to care, a number of young people, as much as there are caring adults in the community, if they don't have access to those adults, if they don't see consistency with respect to those adults and their presence, they might not be able to engage in the caring, in what the caring adults have with respect to access to opportunities for them. So consistency lends itself to consistency and transparency in connections lends itself to young people understanding what's possible for them, and that there are things that may be outside of their comfort zone, but are positioned or are available to them. They just sometimes need encouragement, direction, guidance, and sometimes a walking alongside to be able to seize those opportunities in ways that they show that they know, which lends itself to the community connection piece. We believe that we're at a time, I don't know if folks can think of a time where you look back and you say to yourself, I wish I knew then what I know now. I feel like we're in a space like that in terms of what the young people are experiencing, where they're really crying out for help and needing support and needing guidance, where they don't know who's real, they don't know who they could trust. When we've had opportunity to go in and work with a group of students and create leadership opportunities, service opportunities, connection opportunities for them to show that they're actually equipped to lead, they then start to believe it and start to believe in our vision and your vision for them, and until they could see it for themselves. So what I would love to see is this continued engagement with community, because there is expertise in community where you could tap into that expertise, leverage the expertise to really be a mirror for the greatness and the brilliance that's in the young people within the Toronto District School Board.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. The time has expired for your delegation. We're just looking around the room to see if there are any questions of clarification. Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you so much, Mr. Bowen, for your delegation. And, I extend my gratitude to you for all of the amazing work you've been doing at Oakwood Collegiate and other schools. You mentioned leadership opportunities. I wonder if you could please elaborate on what those leadership opportunities look like for students in the schools that you work in.
Yeah, so there are some here and now leadership opportunities where we've taken young people out into community to serve. So we've worked with some of the high school age youth where we actually hired a number of them that had excelled in the workshops that we were delivering. We hired a number of them to deliver programming with us, character-based programming for students that are 7 to 13 years of age. So they took the principles that they learned in the program, in the workshops, they applied it and shared that application within those workshops, and then they were given real-life opportunities to apply it as they poured into younger youth, right? So they had the younger youth looking up to them as leaders, and they had themselves they had a different view of themselves when a number of them looked in the mirror, as one example. We also have opportunities where we take them out into community and we allow them to connect to some Black excellence and just excellence in general. So we access to events that center around Black excellence. We did with One Voice, One Team. We did with the Pinball Foundation. There are also connections beyond what's happening in high school, where there are pathways after high school, whether in the trades, in tech, or for post-secondary support, folks in tuition for up to 4 years, where because of their participation, they now have some different access points and opportunities to connect.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for all your great work.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
And next we have Trustee King.
Thank you through your chair. Mr. Bowen, I also want to thank you for coming in and for all the work that you do in support of our communities. You mentioned the importance of consistency of caring adults and continued engagement. I just wanted to understand if you have a concern about something that threatens your ability to continue that kind of consistent program delivery with TDSB students.
Well, the concern is the funding piece. You know, as much as the youth, and I'm talking about when you have young people reaching out on all types of mediums. I didn't even think young people use email as much as they've been using email, but on social media, email, however they could reach out to us saying, you know, this opportunity has shifted how I see myself and how I see my opportunities. And because of that shift, I can now show up differently from my peers, right? So without the resources, though, we're limited in terms of what we're able to do. So I'm grateful that there has been a realization of the significance of engaging community in the process as it relates to equipping and empowering our young people. And I hope and pray that the TDSB continues to support from that vantage point, because I don't know if there's been a time such as this where, you know, there's families are challenged coming out of COVID. Young people are telling us, listen, like I love the work, I love what we do, but I have to make money. Like that's a responsibility that I have. So even though I love the thoughts, the principles, there's some things that I just have to do right now, and we can't argue otherwise because they have responsibilities, but they don't feel like they have options. What the TDSB has done through this support is provided options, and without the funding, those options go away.
Thank you so much again for that clarification and for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your delegation, Mr. Bowen. Our next
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Our next delegate is Lisa Grogan Green, Go Green Youth Center. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Lisa Grogan, and I'm the co-chair of Go Green Youth Center. In 2010, we built a cricket field at Valley Park Middle School, which serves Thorncliffe and Flemington. We started programming before the field was built in 2012, when 4 boys from Mark Garneau taught cricket year-round at VPMS, with salaries paid for by the TDSB Focus on Youth Toronto program. In fact, FOIT, along with the Canada Summer Jobs Program, built our youth-led programs, which expanded to include a host of year-round recreational and educational programs, including computer programming, career planning, and most recently, academic tutoring. Thanks to Superintendent Jim Spiropoulos and Dan Kanisa of Caring and Safe Schools, they chose GGYC to deliver an innovative student-led tutoring program on a scale that we could never have dreamed of as a small not-for-profit last year. Why tutoring? This community is absorbing a tremendous number of displaced young people, some traumatized, some of whom have never been formally educated, some haven't seen the inside of a school before. It's thought this undereducation, along with a post-pandemic achievement gap, is behind some of the rising incidents of youth violence and gang activity in the neighborhood, that sometimes becomes life-threatening. The situation was then and remains drastic today and calls for big measures. We were provided $650,000 of funding from March through mid-June 2023, effectively increasing our annual budget 1.5 times. Our small group of 16 part-time youth were told to interview and hire 110 grade 11 and 12 students to tutor more than 450 other students in both VPMS and MGCI during the March break and after school and on Saturdays in literacy and numeracy. The program was astonishingly successful, with virtually 100% of the students reporting improvements in performance and, more importantly, self-confidence. We spent funds on tech. We gave some away, youth salaries, training, food, offered a healthy breakfast, lunch, drinks, snacks. Academic supports were offered, motivational speakers. This year, by contrast, because of various funding cuts, we received $55,000 for the March break only, and we're told to hire 10 tutors. And our impact, while qualitatively the same, was quantitatively much smaller. Why is our program successful? The model. Students who required help were referred to us by Caring and Safe, the principals and staff. We kept the student-to-tutor ratio quite low, a maximum of 5 tutors to 1, as low as, or 5 students to 1 tutor, and as low as 1 to 1 if a student needed help. We worked in groups, keeping the energy high with 15 students in a class and 3 to 5 tutors in a room. There was great mentorship and shared lived experiences among the tutors and the tutored.
Ms. Grogan,
Yeah,
my apologies.
okay.
I gave you a little smidge more time,
okay.
but your time has expired.
All right, so I just want to say one thing, that of 330 students that arrived from Valley Park Middle School this year into grade 9, the principal told us that 181 of them, so 55% of those students, are failing at literacy and math. This, to me, is why it needs to be continued. I think that emphasizing student-led tutoring on a sort of school-wide basis, it animates the school and emphasizes the importance of education.
Thank you so much for your delegation, Ms. Grogan Green. If you could share the written delegation
Sure.
to the same email address where you requested to delegate, then it can be shared with all trustees.
Yes, happy to do.
And we appreciate you coming here and sharing your delegation with us this evening.
Okay.
I'm just looking, Trustee Chernos-Lynn?
Thank you, Lisa, for your delegation. In addition to like the academic impact that this would have on incoming students, what impact are you seeing on the volunteers who, or not the volunteers, the students who have been, I think there's a weird, the students who've been chosen by Caring and Safe, in terms of the impact on them in taking these leadership roles? What's the impact you're seeing there?
Okay, so years ago, we joined the Ontario Camps Association, and we all spent quite a bit of time trying to develop within the student the idea that they were a coach of others. We took them to the Coaches Association of Ontario conferences, the OCA conferences, and spent a lot of time on training. But the weirdest thing is that it quickly acculturated, so we don't have to do any of that training anymore. And I was really scared, frankly, to go from 16 kids, also hearing about some of the bullying and violence that was taking place, and the fact that we were taking the responsibility really to address that. We were afraid, and we increased our liability insurance, obviously, weren't allowed to have administration in the school or the police, so the onus was on us. What was interesting was how quickly a student discovers that they're a leader and adopts the role of a leader. It's almost instantaneous. You tell that student that they are an ambassador and they behave ambassadorially. That's it. And so 110 kids delivered an incredible March break. Like I did a tour of every classroom, and science experiments were taking place, history lessons and geography lessons were up on the board, and we had given the kids very little advanced training and not a lot of support, but they did all of the lesson planning themselves. There was like a tremendous amount of creativity taking place. For example, one of the kids only spoke Mandarin, so one of the tutors worked one-on-one using Google Translate and helped that student learn and, probably change that kid's perception of themselves. And, one of the questions was, what is causing some of this? And I think of it myself as an adult, and most of us, not all, are adults in the room. And for me, a lot of it is feeling like I'm overwhelmed. I'm burdened, and I can't handle everything that is coming my way. And when you think about a new immigrant student that arrives that may have had an identity that was pretty successful somewhere else, but they got here, no language, and they're lost, and they stay lost. And that's really unfortunate. And
Thank
it
you
can
so
be
much,
changed.
Ms.
It can be
Grogan
turned
Green.
around.
I'm so sorry your time has expired, but we really appreciate you coming
you.
and sharing the great work that's being done in the program.
Thank you.
The next delegate, Valerie White. Secretary, Karma Shonen Dargalin.
Karmasonam Darjaling.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Please speak right into the mic so they can hear you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and all gathered here. I'm speaking on behalf of Lama Tenzin and Karmasonam Darjaling, a Tibetan Buddhist temple in Parkdale, Toronto. We have been a non-profit organization in Canada since 1976. The KSDL Tibetan Heritage and Language Camp is a 7-week summer camp for Tibetan youth, ages 7 to 18, that is now in its 9th year. In the camp, held in TDSB space, the students study Tibetan language, philosophy, meditation, music, and dance. Over the years, the class has grown to close to 100 students. We are grateful to the TDSB for providing a gym, a lunchroom, 3 classrooms for our 3 levels of students, and outdoor space for lunch and recess. The classes are taught by professional teachers and assistants and monks from KSDL. The Tibetan Heritage and Language Camp and similar programs are invaluable for the preservation of Tibetan culture, language, and religious studies. For Tibet, a country that has been existing in exile since 1959, programs like this are critical to keeping their rich and vibrant culture alive. KSDL is committed to doing everything we can to make sure that the Tibetan youth today have the opportunity to learn, explore, and carry on their historical traditions in a safe and caring environment. And we have been more than grateful to have found a partner in the TDSB. At the end of every summer, we host a graduation ceremony at our temple, attended by the students, their family, and community. The students wear traditional Tibetan clothing, receive diplomas and awards for special achievements, and showcase their singing and dancing skills. We've been honored with speakers such as Tibetan community leaders and politicians Arif Avarani, MP, Butila Karpashe, MPP, Councillor Gord Perks, and last year we welcomed the participation of Debbie King, our helpful, engaged, and much appreciated TDSB trustee. We look forward to the Tibetan Heritage and Language Camp continuing for years into the future. We do not charge a fee for the camp, and without programs such as Safe and Caring Schools, we would be unable to continue. Ideally, we would love to have an arrangement that carries on year after year to simplify the application process we go through every spring. That procedure can be time-consuming and confusing, but last year, with the help of Jim and Dan and the Safe and Caring program, the application went swiftly and smoothly. We are more than grateful for the help we received last year through Safe and Caring Schools. The caps, the t-shirts, and the hoodies were very much appreciated by the kids and staff, as was the support we received for classroom materials and offerings to the teachers and monks.
Ms. White, my apologies, but your time has expired.
The important thing is the space. This year, they're charging $26,000. That's all I'm going to say, and we can't afford that.
Appreciate that. And Trustee King.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you as well for making the trip and spending some time with us. You mentioned that the summer camp is specifically offered in one neighborhood in Parkdale, and I think that's a little different than some of the other organizations we've heard that offer programming in different neighborhoods. I wonder if for those that are not familiar, if you can just speak to the significance of the program that you're offering in this specific community.
I would say that Parkdale has the largest population of Tibetan refugees and immigrants. There's close to 10,000, and that's just the ones that are legally documented at this point. The camp is open to students all across Toronto, and we do get a lot of kids from Etobicoke, because a lot of the Tibetan community is moving there, and from downtown Toronto. But primarily, Parkdale is now known as Little Tibet, so it's very valuable there.
And if I can just follow up, can you just confirm, do you have the same funding available to you to continue in this summer?
We were just dealing with permits, back to just dealing with permits. They said that it would be $26,000 with no kind of a program or discount. It could be that much, and they're waiting to see if the Safe and Caring program will continue this fall, this summer.
And last follow-up through the chair, do you have the capacity and the resources to be able to run the camp this summer if that funding is not provided?
Not at all. It will not happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Trustee Hassan.
Through you, Chair, I want to thank you, Valerie, for coming today and presenting your delegation. When we look at Parkdale, a very diverse community with a historic background, and I've been made aware of your program and the phenomenal work that you're doing to enhance the youth and provide programs that are culturally supportive as well. So my question for you, Valerie, is could you explain to us why it's important for students that you serve to have those culturally appropriate supports?
Well, as I mentioned, the whole Tibetan culture and heritage is in danger of disappearing from the planet. And it's a very rich, vibrant, and it's a wonderful, wonderful culture. It has a lot to offer. And a lot of Western people now are getting very involved with the temple and studying the meditation techniques and learning the language, etc. So it's not going to go away, especially if we have programs like this.
Thank you, Valerie.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's it. Okay, thank you so much, Valerie White, for coming and delegating this evening.
Thank you.
The next delegate, Nadeem Sheikh, Scarborough Muslim Association. Welcome. And if I've mispronounced your name, please correct me.
It's all right. Sheikh is the
Sheikh?
last name.
Okay, Mr. Sheikh, please begin.
Okay. Thank you all for the opportunity. When I was invited to speak here, I wasn't expecting a setting like this. Honestly, I came straight from work. I went home, quickly got ready, and came here. So I wasn't even able to figure out how this process goes, but here we are. I'm not a very good speaker in front of people, so please do bear with me. I'm here to speak today on behalf of the Scarborough Muslim Association on the subject of collaborative approach to school and community safety. Firstly, I'd like to thank the TDSB and the Caring and Safe Schools team of Jim, Dan, Bill, Melanie, and all others who helped out set up the program. And I'll be honest with you, I can rarely remember their last names. We're always on a first name basis, and it was very welcoming. We were provided the opportunity over the past 2 years or so to work with the TDSB and provide services to our students and our community. We focused on literacy, numeracy, and leadership skills amongst the children and students outside of school hours. The students that were supported have shown great improvement in their marks and education. In addition to this, the community feels safer and parents know where their children are. If I were to say one thing that made this program successful, was the fact that we were able to provide the help in a way that the community would like to see it. We provided culturally appropriate services and supports, as a one-size-fits-most strategy doesn't necessarily work. You must know the people that you serve. Islamophobia is real and touches all aspects of our students and continues to create barriers in our communities. It limits access and opportunity. What this funding has done in a way that has never been done before is open a wider door that it ever has for our community to lead programs that are safe, relevant, and most importantly, help students to reach their full potential. Instead of us coming to you, the TDSB, you came to us, and we are very grateful. We thank the TDSB for the opportunity, and we ask that the TDSB continue such programs in partnership with local organizations to help build communities and make them safer. And I'd also like to invite all of you to come visit our organization and our mosque so that we may learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sheikh. I see Trustee McLean.
Thank you, and through the chair. Thank you very much for coming today and delegating and the work you're doing in the community to help and service those that are utilizing and taking advantage of what's being offered. You said something that was of interest to me that I'd like you to expand upon if you would. You indicated that you were delivering the services in a way the community wanted to see. I think I paraphrased you correctly. Could you share how that's different and what makes it unique and what makes it that more effective, if you like, please?
Sure. The community that we serve has a large population of immigrants. They're new immigrants. Much of the cultures that reside in our area like to see services that they are comfortable with. And I'll give you an example. Within the Muslim faith, females will generally feel safer and more comfortable in an only female setting. Similarly with males. So taking that as an example, I mean, the services that we provide for children, specifically the girls, putting them in that environment makes them a lot more comfortable, as well as their parents are a lot more comfortable being sending their children to those types of environments. That's basically what I mean.
Thank you, sir.
Trustee Hassan.
Through you, Chair. Nadeem, I want to thank you for coming today as a delegation and expressing your concerns. One point you mentioned, Nadeem, is that you said a one-size strategy doesn't fit all. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
It's fairly straightforward. Being, how would I put this correctly? Being from a minority within a racialized, I guess, neighborhood, community, when I've been involved with youth and violence and programming for quite a long time, to be honest, 20 years or so, ever since I was a teen. And, you know, when you have violence in your communities and the government or the government organizations step in with solutions, the solutions are generally catered to a different community, or they are formed around a different community and are suggested that they may work in your setting. not knowing your community, not knowing the cultures that come with the community, not knowing the backgrounds that come within a specific community, make it very easy for you to understand that it's not a 1 + 1 = 2 scenario. You really have to understand the community. And when I say a one-size-fits-most is not a solution, I can go on for a while. But I hope you understand what I'm trying to say from my answer.
Yeah, Nadeem, I absolutely understand what you're saying. And I want to let you know that I'm very happy to see you here today in the boardroom and to be able to relay this information to us. It's very important to have this Muslim representation. As a trustee who identifies as Muslim and Black, I can advocate for the fact that we have seen increased violences in our communities. One thing I've been trying to spearhead as a trustee is anti-Islamophobia strategy, the TDSB. And part of that strategy is working with communities like yourself, right, at the Scarborough Muslim Association. This is not a this goes back to my point about not being a one-size-fits-all. I feel every community needs to have their independent, deliberate, intentional strategy that caters to that community. So I wanted to ask you, have you had those engagements with the TDSB in regards to anti-Islamophobia and how the TDSB has been dealing with it?
Sorry, I missed the last part of...
Trustee Hassan, your time has expired. My apologies. So thank you again. Trustee Laskin, it's your turn.
Just wondering if you could comment on if you have been engaged already with the TDSB on the development of the Islamophobia strategy.
I'm confused here. Do I speak to...
So
I'm asking his question for him because his time was up to give you an opportunity to answer.
Okay.
You could speak to Trustee Hassan, no problem.
All right. We have not been involved with the strategy. I mean, I wish there was one, and if there is, we'd love to. We'd love to be involved.
Wonderful. We have staff in the room who are listening and hope your group will be part of the community outreach. And I'm sure Trustee Hassan will follow up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Sheikh, for coming and delegating this evening.
Thank you all as well, and I apologize. I was not prepared for this, but I hope.
It was wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Our next delegate, Michael Callum, Director, Taking Kids Out of Poverty. And to everyone who comes forward, if I mispronounce your name, please correct me.
Thank you. My name is Mikhail. I'll get started here. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm the founder of Taking Kids Out of Poverty. Its acronym's TKOP and pronounced as TAKOP. I wanted to start off with sharing a bit about myself to the audience. I'm a lifelong resident of the St. Jamestown community. I grew up with a single mother who was a refugee from Eritrea. Prior to relocating to St. Jamestown, my mom settled in an all-women's shelter in Toronto. In under a year, my mom was able to secure housing in St. Jamestown community. Growing up in my community wasn't easy, and my mom and I experienced several challenges, including food insecurity, poverty, housing challenges, and more. As I grew older in my community and started forming relationships with my peers, we all shared the same or similar struggles. My family and friends relied on several community programs in the area, most of which were free. I also landed my very first job with some of these agencies. However, as I grew older, I also outgrew the programs naturally, or some have ceased to exist. A service gap now exists in my community, and I wanted to take an action to fill this void and continue the programming that previously existed. In 2021, I decided to establish TAKOP, a nonprofit organization providing educational, soccer, and mentorship programming for Black and racialized children and youth in the St. Jamestown, Cabbagetown, and surrounding neighborhoods. In under 3 years, we've been able to achieve a lot as an organization, some of which include implementing 6 diverse free programs catering to over 500 children and youth, providing employment opportunities to over 30 youth and young adults, thanks to the Caring and Safe Schools of TDSB, organizing over 20+ field trips and events throughout year-round programming, facilitating a holiday toy drive for families in our neighborhood, providing free books and gifts year-round to support learning and development, and distributing over 80 laptops and technological devices during our March Break Literacy Program in partnership with Caring and Safe Schools of the TDSB. These are only some of our achievements. We've also facilitated employment opportunities for alumni of our program that have been able to secure volunteer and employment experience with our agency necessary to go off to secure employment in other workplace settings. As an agency, we've also been able to collaborate with external partners that have assisted us in expanding our impact and reach. With our agency, we've been able to address a lot of challenges existing not only in our community, but also communities across Toronto, such as gun violence. As the demand continues to grow, we quickly adapted our programming to meet the evolving needs of participants and communities. It's been a blessing to partner with Caring and Safe Schools to deliver our programming to our community. The impact of Take Off has been positive in 4 areas, including programming, youth and young adults, parents and caregivers, and the community at large. In terms of programming, we're able to provide various safe and free programs in accessible spaces where participants are part of a program in which there aren't any barriers. Because we're an organization led by Black and racialized leaders with strong ties to our community, parents and caregivers are at ease knowing their children and youth are in our programs that are culturally appropriate and reflective of their needs.
Mr. Callum, my apologies. Your time has expired. I'm just looking around the room to see if there are any questions of clarification. If you could, Trustee Laskin?
Why you're speaking to us tonight? What was your ask?
My ask is to continue delivering this programming in our community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if you could provide your delegation in writing to the same email address that you requested to delegate, it could be shared among all of our trustees. Thank you again for coming and delegating this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next delegate is Sean Boyd, Chair of the Board, Anico Eagle Mines. Online, Mr. Boyd, *6 to unmute. Oh, he's here in person? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. As was mentioned, my name is Sean Boyd. I'm currently the chair of Agnico Eagle Mines, and I've been at Agnico for 39 years, 24 years as CEO of the company. Agnico is a Toronto-based company, been in business since 1957, currently the largest mining company in Canada and one of Canada's largest public companies. My connection to Toronto in this program is my grandfather built a house in Scarborough in the 1940s. My father was educated and grew up in Scarborough, and I also grew up in Scarborough and was educated in Scarborough and York region and graduated from the University of Toronto. So why are we here to talk about the Employment Readiness Program? We got exposure to the program several years ago when the weekend program was looking for support to provide winter coats and warm winter coats and clothing for the participants, which we gladly were willing to do. And through that engagement, we met Emmanuel Papathanasakis and Jim Spiropoulos as part of the program. And we got to learn a little bit more about their work putting together an employment readiness program. And through that engagement, we realized that the need was much greater than the resources in the program. And through our 60+ years history as a company, not only do we build mines, but we also find ourselves in parts of the world where they need to see a lot of community building from the partners that are engaged in the region. And in our long history, nowhere have we seen a program with the greatest need, but also the greatest opportunity to do the most good. And so our wish is to continue to work with the program to look how and see how we can actually do more using our networks to bring more resources to bear. And I think a great example of why we're involved, but also why we think this program is critical to provide opportunity to the youth starting in Scarborough, but hopefully expand the program, is just the impact it's having on the students. And we have a student with us that's benefited from the program, and we'd like that student, Delroy, to share with you how the program has helped him put himself in a position to realize his full potential. So I'll turn it over to Delroy.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Delroy, you've got 14 seconds.
Hi,
Oh,
my name is Delroy Royal.
That's okay.
Hi, my name is Delroy Royal. I was homeless in the start of the new school year. After going to the program, I was able to work with these guys, and they helped me to sign the contract yesterday. Full-time job, I'm starting the 19th, and I'm graduating the 27th.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I have a few trustees who have questions of clarification. Trustee Pay? Trustee Pay is, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly just want to make a comments, for Mr. Boyd is delegating to the board. What a fantastic stories and touching story that a mining company supporting the school board. So I just have a quick question to ask Mr. Boyd. What really inspire you as a mining executives, also the chair of the board, the largest mining company in Canada? What's your aspiration to have the largest school board, for these programs? Thank you.
Well, we just see a need, and I think it goes back to our corporate culture and our history. I was fortunate to be hired there in 1985, and the founder and CEO gave me an errand one afternoon and said, Sean, here's the keys to my car. It's at the corner of Victoria and Richmond. There's a gentleman on the northeast corner of that intersection. His name's John. In my car, there's a winter coat, there's food, and here's $20 and go down and see John. And that left an impression on me, a 26-year-old. Not only did the CEO of the company that just hired me know the homeless person's name, he also knew the jacket size. And so here we are in a situation 40 some years later, almost, where we had the opportunity to provide jackets to students that didn't have them in Scarborough. And just getting to know the people in the program, we could not but help, given the success that our company's had and our connection to Scarborough and the community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyd. Such inspirational is a story. You're a role model. I really appreciate your delegation. Also, I hope is more private company can come to school board, like TDSB or other school board to help the students out. Thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Trustee McLean.
Through the chair, Delroy, not to criticize your ability to be concise and effectively use the 14 seconds, but I'm more interested in an expanded version of what the program has done for you and how impactful it's been for you. So if you could share, please.
So I started the program in October, the Saturday program. I didn't have anywhere to sleep, but I got my friends. Not every night, but sometimes when the place gets too cold, I went there to sleep. And I started go to the program. I was too prideful because I'm a Jamaican and we don't like to tell people our business. But when it gets too hard, I have to talk, and I talked to Emmanuel and the guys, and they helped me. The first check that I get a place to rent, and then ever since, they never let me down. Like they always be on my back, pushing me to do better, and here am I.
That's great. Congratulations. And I think you shared, and if it's not a problem for you to share, could you share what job you've got and what you'll be doing?
It's auto valve. I will be fixing valves for a company in a warehouse, managerially. manager position. My bad for the speaking.
That's great. Congratulations and good luck with your.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Thank you. Trustee Hassan?
Through you, Chair, I want to thank you, Sean Boyd and Delroy, for coming forward with your delegations tonight. My first question is for Sean. Where in the past year have your programs been based out of?
Well, these particular assistants that we've had were the Scarborough-based programs out of David and Mary Thompson Collegiate. So that school is actually 2 kilometers from where I grew up in Scarborough.
Okay, and going forward, is that going to be the focus area, sort of the east end of the city, or is there any opportunity for expansion into other areas? And the reason why I'm asking this is because as the trustee for York Southwestern, I know youth employment has been at my fingertips, and many youth have been reaching out to me for opportunities, as well as other community leaders. So I love the work you're doing, Sean, and I'd love to see you expand to the west end of the city. And Delroy, thank you for coming forward with your delegation. I hope your new job, it goes well. And I hope to see many more students and many more young men like yourself come forward and bring forward many delegations like this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And our hope is working with Emmanuel, and the point for our involvement was to try, as we said earlier, to use our connections and expand the knowledge of this program throughout the city and really through the corporate world. And there's many opportunities, we think, particularly from financial institutions, to engage the youth because this program does provide them with a wage and a payment, and there's opportunities then to put their first bank account in place. So we're looking excitedly to approach other corporations to help provide more resources so that Emmanuel and Jim can continue to do this good work in other parts of the city.
Thank you. One last question. What advice do you have for us as we look to engage other corporate partners?
Well, I think the key, I think, from being at a public company for all these years is we have to just have concise messaging. And we've been working for the last few months with Jim and Emmanuel, putting a 1 or 2 pager together that we can use to open the doors. We've talked to a few already. One large financial institution we've talked to. Once we can settle on that communication, and we're working with the communications department at the TDSB to do that, then we can start to open up more lines of communications with other potential corporate sponsors.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Delroy.
Thank you, Mr. Sean Boyd, and thank you, Delroy, for your delegation.
Thank you very much.
No,
Hold
please
on.
don't.
We have one more trustee, Trustee Chernos Lynn, with a question.
Mr. Boyd, are you still there?
I am, yes.
Okay, great. It's Rachel Chernos-Lynn, Chair of the Board. We met on a Saturday program. I had the pleasure of meeting you and seeing your program running, and it is truly fantastic. My question for you is, I know you're providing a lot of capital to run these programs, but I believe there's also some government funding in it. Do you know how much government funding you receive for this through the TDSB?
Well, the government funding program, the way it was structured is we provided the funding, large part of the funding for the first semester, and that was 300 students. And then the TDSB portion provided funding in the second half into the new year for another 300 students. So total is about 600 students. So, and that was just, as you know, in the Scarborough area. So what we're hoping to do is, we know resources are tight, they're tight everywhere, but we think, as we said, we see an opportunity here where the need is great, but the opportunity is huge, and we think that will resonate with other corporations to do this as part of their philanthropy, but they just don't know about the program. So our role would be to get the impact of this program out to them so that they can consider it as they look at putting their donations to work.
Well, that would be very helpful because I guess I'm wondering, did you receive our letter that we had written? We did an advocacy letter, and we had asked as part of that all programs that were receiving that funding from us write to the Minister of Education to continue the funding. Did you get that letter?
Yes.
And did you send
I haven't seen that letter, but I have reached out to Minister Lecce to set up a lunch. I currently reside in his riding. My sons went to high school with him, so we did make that connection at David and Mary Thompson Collegiate at the day that you had attended. So I'm waiting to make that outreach and to, make sure that he's fully aware of the support that we feel we can get, and also to enlist his support to continue to provide funding for the program. We'll certainly work on the provincial government as well as try to solicit other corporate donations.
Well, that would be tremendously helpful because this funding was not renewed for us from the provincial government, which was a huge disappointment because, as you know, the service that you're providing is spectacular, as are many of the programs that, as are all the programs that we've heard from today and so many more. So whatever you can do to help, please, 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 thank you. And big thank you for everything that you do.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyd, and thank you, Delroy, for coming and delegating and for your ongoing support and advocacy in support of our board.
Thank you, and we'll continue to work hard and work together.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Our next delegate is Paul Bailey, Center for Black Student Achievement. Is Paul Bailey in the room? We're going to move on. Bethel Teki, Center for Black Student Achievement, online. *6 to unmute. You have 3 minutes, and you'll get a bell when you have 1 minute remaining. *6 to unmute. Is Bethel Teki online? We're going to move on. Courtney Walters, Hart House. Here in the room. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and all that are gathered here today. My name is Courtney Walters. I am a youth assistant, access assistant for Hart House in the University of Toronto, and I'm a community partner with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. We run a program called Brotherhood of Ethnic Excellence, which is catered to high school age Black identifying males, and facilitating workshops that help their transition from high school into adulthood. My affiliation or work with the center actually really started 2 years ago when I was seeking placement for college. And through there, I was given the opportunity to volunteer as a facilitator with the B group, which then led to employment. Through that volunteer access, like I said, I secured employment and continued the work. Now, my reason for speaking to you today is to ask for continued support and funding towards the center. The center is a vital element to not just Black students, but also Black teachers, teachers of all races, and also the community. This center has given a pathway for myself to not only continue my education, but to further my goals as a professional. I am now working towards my master's in social work, and hopefully will become a teacher to hopefully work for the board at some point in time. The access that the center has provided for some of our young people is, to me, unmeasurable. I grew up in the TDSB. I was a student, and through that I've experienced and also witnessed some of the gaps for our students such as myself and other Black identifying students. The center helps address those and hopefully be able to educate and provide bridges over those gaps for future generations to come. So with that, I implore you all to keep in mind how important this center is, once again, not just to the student bodies who attend there, but also to the educators who are part of the board and the community as a whole. Because when they give their support out, their support will come back to the community as a collective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Just looking around to see if there are any questions and clarification. I don't see any in the room, online. Thank you again for coming and delegating this evening, Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
The next delegate, Emmanuel Waldu, Ellesmere Staten Public School. Welcome.
Hi. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Waldu, and I'm in grade 8 from Ellesmere Staten Public School. In my opinion, the life education program will benefit the students around the TDSB in numerous ways. I say this because I've witnessed and experienced some memorable moments during this program. A beneficial example we've gone through is discussing our mental health, more specifically, how to control it and how to maintain that level. We've gone through many important details in life, but one that stuck out to me the most was when we discussed how decision we make now impacts our future. Another thing that impacted my life on the positive side is when our teacher taught us what LLRT stands for and why it's important. LLRT stands for love, loyalty, respect, and trust. These are important traits because these are one of the important things people think when they look at you. They can create good assumptions about you, which later in your life can impact your career, as well as your overall future. This program has taught me that teamwork is a very important thing in your life in a fun way. In every program, we play basketball, which I really enjoy and teaches me about teamwork. Basketball is a sport that is played as a team, which enhances your communication and cooperation skills, which may impact you in the future. This is because in the future, you'll experience working with your colleagues. You will need to work together with them and be able to cooperate. Another thing that the program does for us is they provide us with snacks, as well as foods like pizza, which we'll eat as a group, which will bring us together and share some love of pizza no one ever knew we had. All these things I've listed haven't even scratched the surface on how much the program benefits us. It is just a few of many examples about the program. Therefore, this is my opinion why I think this program should remain standing. I really appreciate your time for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee King.
Thank you, through your chair. Thank you, Emmanuel, for coming in. You mentioned love, loyalty, trust, and respect, which are all very positive traits, and I think traits that we feel are obvious. Can you just clarify, are these intentional lessons that you heard prior to your connection with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement from teachers, from people within your schools?
Yes, specifically, we have this program that every single time we go in circles and they teach us about this and how love, loyalty, and everything is important.
And I'm just going to follow up because I want to be able to highlight the importance of this message coming from the center. Do you feel like those were messages that were emphasized and delivered to you from other educators or in other experiences before your connection with the center?
No, this is from this specifically program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on the list? Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for coming and delegating this evening. We very much appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much.
So our next delegate is Elijah Smith, graduate, Central Technical School. Oh. Welcome, Isaiah.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isaiah Smith, and I'm here today to give my testimony on behalf of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. I am a graduate from Central Technical School class of 2023. That is an accomplishment that I'm very proud of, and that I wouldn't have achieved if it wasn't for the Center of Excellence and their social workers, Ryan and Shan. If it wasn't for the Center of Excellence and their community partner, Heart House, I wouldn't have been a participant of the Brotherhood of Ethnic Excellence program that helped me prepare for my transition from high school to the real world. If it wasn't for the center, I wouldn't have been connected with my mentor, Courtney Walters, that has helped guide me through the process of transitioning from manual labor workforce into the post-secondary education. I'm happy to say that I've been accepted to Humber College's social service work program, and I am proof of the impact that Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement has on students, educators, and community as a whole. With that being said, I ask that the board continues to support it. I just ask that you guys continue to support the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee King.
Thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you, Isaiah, and congratulations on your acceptance to Humber. Can you just clarify for us, you spoke about the importance of support during the transition. Can you help us understand what support was meaningful for you? Is it just the application to college, or is there more to it?
It's more than just the application. It's the support all around, that I know that I have the people in the program supporting me, not just to apply for school, but also to help me get ready for the school program. So that type of support means like a lot, because you don't really get a lot of support from people outside of high school. They help prepare you from high school to like the real world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Thank you again, one more. Trustee McLean.
Thank you, and through the chair. You shared that that you were proud of your high school graduation, as you should be. Congratulations. But you indicated that I think a guidance teacher someone had been instrumental in helping you achieve that. So I was interested if you could expand upon that a little bit and share what role they played and how that was helpful to you, and if that assistance appeared to be available to you in other ways, or was this kind of the only manner in which what you deemed to be helpful was available to you?
So with the people that helped me, which is Shan and someone also named Ryan, I stayed like after school, even when like school was done. There's a thing called credit recovery, and they also ran that and helped me get the credit I needed and supported me through there with like that type of work. Because a lot of other like teachers that were for example, like math, there was like a deadline of the math class, which is like the last day of school, and you couldn't get any extra help from that math teacher. So they came and supported me around there, which also helped me graduate.
That's great. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
And can you share, what's the area of study again?
Pardon?
The area of study at Humber College?
Oh, social service work.
And if it's not too personal, can you share how that area became of interest to you?
I got inspired by the program, because in the program we talk among each other, and I was one of the students that a message that they spoke about, like it got across to me, and I was really inspired by that, which made me want to get into that field so I could also inspire other students like myself and other people around.
And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your delegation, and I see a bright future ahead for you. Good luck. The next delegate we have is Joshua Calderon Roper, Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. Online? *6 to unmute.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
You have 3 minutes.
My name is...
Please begin.
Yes, okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Josiah Calderon Roper. I am an Afro-Latino grade 10 student that attends C.W. Jeffries Collegiate Institute. I was born and raised in the Jane and Finch area, and I am very happy to be here with you guys. Today, I was asked to speak about my experience with the BSSE initiative I was a part of in grade 8. My love and passion for music started at a young age. I feel like music is a part of my life, my culture, and a part of how I was raised. Growing up in Jane and Finch, many people's things was basketball, others soccer, but mine was singing. Around the age of 12, I began to sing at my church's choir, and I always enjoyed singing and always dreamt of a career in music. But sure, I could sing a song in front of my church, but I couldn't bring myself to sing in front of my peers or even post a video of me singing. I had a sense of fear and shame that I wasn't going to be viewed as talented, but as a joke. It wasn't until Miss Graham, one of the workers with the BSSE, showed up and things changed. At the time, I was a grade 8 student attending Brookview Middle School and having to deal with a very old-fashioned teacher. When I first heard about the BSSE, I thought it was just another boring program, but then I was asked to help run it and saw how much fun it could actually be. School is a place where you think there was support, but for me, there was none. My teachers doubted my abilities to be a leader and create lessons. However, it was Miss Graham that saw something in me that not even my teacher saw. She saw a leader. As a leader, we had to come up with various lessons to present to our class. And after these lessons, I had to give my classmates a final project. The project that me and the other leaders chose to give the class was the option to make an album, podcast, or magazine. The catch was, whatever you choose, it had to be about a social justice issue or a problem in the world. Of course, the leaders also had to participate because the project was going towards our English mark. So I chose to make an album. Since I was so busy, I was only able to make one song. The issue that I chose to sing about was domestic violence. Thank God I had my best friend's help and support because without her, I don't know how that song would have came out. Finally, the time came for everyone to present the project. This group of boys went first to present a rap that they made about racism. Our teacher was pretty satisfied with it, but she was hard to impress. I was scared to present my song in front of the class, but mostly in front of my teacher that had no hope in me and was expecting me to fail. Next, it was my turn to play my song titled Runaway for everyone. While the song was playing, it felt like torture. As the song ended, I expected everyone to laugh and make fun of me, but to my surprise, everyone loved it. The same teacher that doubted me was the same teacher that recognized how wrong she was. After seeing how everyone received my song, I thought about taking music more seriously. I started networking, and finally, I made my first song titled Last Dance that is out on all platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. In all honesty, if it wasn't for Ms. Graham and the BSSE initiative program, I may have never gained the courage to put myself out there. I am forever
Mr.
grateful for those
Calderon,
lessons I learned.
my apologies, Mr.
Hello?
Calderon Roper. Your time has expired. I see a question in the room. Trustee D. DeVitas.
Hi, Josiah. Could you do me a favor? And my question to you is if you can maybe finish your last thought with the question time that I have for you.
Thank you. In all honesty, if it wasn't for Ms. Graham and the BSSE initiative program, I may have never gained the courage to put myself out there. I am forever grateful for those lessons I learned while I was a leader, life lessons that I still put in effect in my everyday life. Honestly, the BSSE, it wasn't just a program, it was also a way for me to connect with people that weren't my teachers, you know. I was able to connect with this one teacher, Ms. Graham, and we still keep in contact. She still helps me whenever I need help in any area. She's always there for me. But that's pretty much it. And yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to tell you, I'm proud to say that I'm your school board trustee, that you go to one of the schools that I represent, and you did an amazing job with your narrative, you know, and bring that to your music and continue to grow that trade. And then we'll be telling stories about how we knew you when you were a teenager.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
Very happy you came in today, and I thank you for being brave and continue to do so, okay?
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much for your delegation, Mr. Calderon Roper. Have a great evening.
You too. Take
Our
care.
next delegate is Elizabeth Block, Independent Jewish Voices.
Yes, I'm a member of Independent Jewish Voices. You can tell by my T-shirt, I think, that I am an anti-Zionist Jew. I'm here to ask you a few things. To begin with, please drop the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. That is the one that treats criticism of Israel as if it were anti-Semitism. It is not. No matter what the definition says, no matter what Israel and its supporters say. And stop partnering with B'nai B'rith and the Wiesenthal Center and CJA and the UJA. They say they represent all Canadian Jews. They do not. They certainly don't represent me. They used to be, some of them used to be civil liberties organizations. They aren't anymore. These days, they mostly just shill for Israel. They dump on Arabs, they dump on Muslims, and they certainly dump on Palestinians. And make it plain to teachers, Toronto teachers, that they are allowed to support Palestine without fear of losing their jobs. There are academics who have lost their jobs. There's at least one at the U of T for supporting Palestine. Would a Jewish teacher lose their job, be in danger of losing their job for supporting Israel? I don't think so. And Palestinians especially are likely to have family members in Gaza whom they are worried about or for whom they may be mourning. I have a friend who is a Palestinian activist, Robert Massoud. He's been doing it for like 20 years. He once told us that when he started his activism, his parents were afraid it would get them deported. They had been citizens for 40 years. Can you imagine a Jewish family having that kind of fear? I can't. Okay, I grew up in New York where it's no problem being Jewish. I still can't imagine it. And one last point. We started this afternoon with a land acknowledgement. I once wrote to Shlomo Sand, he teaches history at the Tel Aviv University, asking him how it would go over if he started his lectures in Israel with a land acknowledgement. Not well, he said. I hope someday, I probably won't live to see it, but I hope someday in Israel they will have land acknowledgements.
Thank you so much for your delegation, Ms. Block. And I don't see any questions of clarification. We appreciate you coming and speaking with us this evening. The next delegate is Marilyn Canny, Independent Jewish Voices.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today about the impact of the school system on Palestinian and Jewish students. I had worked in, actually there was a social worker person who was sitting behind me, and I was a social worker. I worked at Centennial College in the Human Rights Office for 10 years, and for 18 years I was the Director of Human Rights and Health Equity at Mount Sinai Hospital. And I am Jewish, and I was born on the prairies, in case you were interested. I am deeply concerned about systemic anti-Palestinian racism at the Toronto District School Board. I'm also very concerned about how the IHRA definition, which we just heard about, of anti-Semitism is used within the TDSB. It doesn't address the very real anti-Semitism that occurs, and instead it contributes to anti-Palestinian racism. From my experience, I know it is possible to shift a large organization, and it is possible to shift the environment at the TDSB to ensure that all students can learn and be who they are. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is absolutely necessary. It requires leadership that will ensure a curriculum is holding the stories and the safety of all students. It requires that all employees and teachers understand the impact of leaving some students out and the impact of trauma that some may be experiencing. It takes leadership to take a stand that understands that doing so will create a safer environment for Palestinian children. Even more, it can create a place where Palestinian students can be who they are in the classroom, and I know that all students and teachers can learn from that. When I hear from my Palestinian friends is that their children are being overlooked and often targeted, which is heartbreaking to hear. What I have heard is that they want to be able to send their children to school in the TDSB, not having to be afraid and not having their identity erased or ignored. And this is heightened during this period where over the past 8 months there has been a genocide occurring in Gaza. They feel their children should be able to wear their keffiyeh just as Jewish children should be allowed to wear their kippah or skull cap in the classrooms. Teachers need to learn that being Palestinian is not scary, that being Palestinian does not automatically mean that you are anti-Semitic, and that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. For this to happen, there needs to be some policy changes. Stop using the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. Please collect and report data on the experiences of Palestinian families in the TDSB. Ensure that all teachers and staff are trained to respond to anti-Palestinian racism and that teachers won't be punished for teaching about Palestine in the classroom. Thank you so much. Oh, 7:16.
Thank you so much, Ms. Canny, for your delegation. Just looking around the room. Trustee King?
Thank you, Ms. Kanye, for your delegation. I just have a clarification. You mentioned the definition of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. You also spoke about shifts in educational spaces. I just wanted to clarify, is a shift in adopting the definition, is that one of the shifts that you've seen successfully in other educational settings?
To get rid of it? To get rid of the IHR? Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And just to follow up on that, have you seen that within public school educational settings or more post-secondary?
I'm not really an expert on what is happening within the other school systems. I think right at this moment, certainly it is critical that in both the early going to work or going to school folks and the higher education folks, it's very, very important that we get rid of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again for your delegation, Ms. Canny. Our next delegate, Simon Glass, Jewish Faculty Network.
I'd like to start by thanking the chair and members of the committee for giving me this opportunity to address the Program and School Services Committee of the TDSB on the update of the Combating Hate and Racism Student Learning Strategy. My name is Simon Glass. I'm a TDSB parent. I'm a Jew. I'm a member of the Jewish Faculty Network, and I'm a professor at Oakhead University. In my own practice, I examine Jewish history of the 20th century, including the Holocaust, with references to Hebrew scripture, liturgy, and mysticism. I urge the committee to recognize that to speak against Zionism and the actions or ideologies of the State of Israel is not anti-Semitic. As you know, many Jewish people today oppose the actions of the State of Israel in its theft of land, long history of discrimination against Palestinians, and what has become understood as plausibly genocide. But Jewish opposition to Zionism has a history as long as Zionism itself. While Jewish people have themselves experienced discrimination, oppression, and genocide, I join other members of the Jewish community in asserting that never again means never again for anyone. The International Holocaust Remembrance Association's definition of anti-Semitism troublingly associates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. I urge the TDSB to disavow the IHRA's definition and to instead seek partnership with progressive community groups such as Toronto Jewish Families and Toronto Palestinian Families to develop definitions and policies for moving forward and that build equity and social justice for all. I appreciate that Anti-Palestinian racism is now named in the TDSB Combating Hate and Racism Strategy. I would urge you to include anti-Palestinian racism in the board's equity policy as well, to ensure that the strategy is well supported by the policy. As well, the board should publicly affirm that TDSB staff and students will be free to support Palestinian human rights and criticize the state of Israel. It is not anti-Semitic to do so. The silence of the TDSB in the face of the horrors that are being committed in Gaza and have been ongoing, especially in the last 8 months, has done immeasurable harm to Palestinians and their families. The TDSB needs to acknowledge this. Please recognize that, as with Black Lives Matter, Truth and Reconciliation, and other equity-seeking movements, an understanding of history is central to combating racism. I urge you to teach our children Palestinian history, including the Nakba of 1948, in which around 750,000 Palestinian Arabs were forced from their homes and around 15,000 killed. The other night, knowing that I was about to make this delegation, my 8-year-old daughter, now in grade 2, asked me, "So, could I expect to learn about Palestinian history at school in the future?" I hope to be able to answer in the affirmative soon. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your delegation, Mr. Glass. I'm just looking around the room. Thank you for your delegation. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Our next delegate, Zoe Wool, online.
Hello? Hello?
Just speak up. We need you to speak a bit louder. You have 3 minutes, and you'll get a buzzer when you have 1 minute left.
Great, thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I'm a Jewish parent of a Jewish grade 4 TDSB student, and very much like our brave first student delegate tonight, I'm deeply concerned about anti-Semitism. And it's because of this that I want to thank you for amending the Combating Hate and Anti-Racism framework to include anti-Palestinian racism. And this might seem counterintuitive, especially in the wake of anti-Semitism hearings at the federal government that foregrounded the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which we've just heard a lot about. So let me explain. Recently, my partner was volunteering at our kids' school when a student came in from recess and enthusiastically declared that they had been playing Jews and Nazis in the schoolyard. In my shock and distress, I knew that there was no safe resource for me to turn to within the TDSB because the existing anti-Semitism resources teach that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic, and in doing so, they undermine my family's Jewish values, and they do not keep my kids safe. Amid the cherished diversity of Jewish voices, there is a long and vibrant tradition of Jewish solidarity with marginalized groups, including Palestinians. This predates the state of Israel. It was true during the Nakba, as we just heard, and it has been true ever since. And this is the tradition of Judaism that many of us follow and in which I am raising my kid. Including anti-Palestinian racism within the TDSB's anti-hate framework is essential. It can help us understand, for example, why Palestinian history and cultural symbols such as the keffiyeh are not inherently anti-Semitic, even if they may make some Jews uncomfortable. Anti-Palestinian racism needs to be named and addressed, and any anti-hate framework is incomplete without it, just as it would be incomplete without anti-Semitism. Including the anti-Palestinian racism within these frameworks also makes it clear how absurd and indeed how dangerous the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism is. Adopting that definition means that Palestinians or anyone who criticizes Israel's violent displacement of Palestinians is anti-Semitic. My own Jewish kid who follows our Jewish values by proudly wearing a homemade ceasefire t-shirt to school would be labeled by the TDSB as anti-Semitic. When kids are on the schoolyard playing Jews and Nazis, I agree with the first delegate that we desperately need anti-Semitism resources, but we need them to be resources that will not vilify Palestinians. We need them to be resources that will not undermine Jewish traditions of social justice. We need resources that name anti-Semitism as a strategy of white supremacy and not false definitions that hinge on political support for the state of Israel. including anti-Palestinian racism within the TDSB strategy,
Ms. Wu,
alongside
my
anti-Semitism,
apologies, Ms. Wu. Your
means
time has
rejecting
expired.
a definition of anti-Semitism that denies the diversity of Jewish voices.
I love your determination. And, thank you so much for your delegation. I'm just looking around the room. Again, thank you for your delegation, Ms. Wool. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Our next delegate, B.H. Hail, artist and professor, OCAD University.
Thank you for the opportunity to delegate. My name is B.H. Yael. I am an artist, filmmaker, and professor at OCAD University. I'm an Israeli-born Canadian, my parents from Jewish communities in Iraq and Poland. My work over more than 25 years has focused on these differing Mizrahi and Ashkenazi experiences, on Palestinian dispossession, and on Israel's aggression towards Palestinians. My video work has been about documenting Jewish and Israeli activists and scholars who attest to this history, as this racialized group does not speak with one voice. I am also a grandmother of 2 students at the TDSB. When I included a land acknowledgement at our Rosh Hashanah dinner a couple years ago, the oldest perked up and said, "We learned that at school." Our Canadian histories of Indigenous dispossession were reinforced in her consciousness at the TDSB. The youngest one commented to my son recently and confirmed with me that she feels uncomfortable when I mention Palestine. Is this expressed discomfort a result of overt or covert messaging that it's not okay to talk about Palestinian history, about current violence and violations in the region, or breaches of our most sacred human rights? Of course, my granddaughters, with family losses on both parental sides, know about the Jewish Holocaust and can talk about their histories at school, as many Jewish students can. What stories do they not hear? If my granddaughters do not hear about the Nakba, will they in fact learn racism and inherent anti-Palestinian racism from being at the TDSB? I teach at a university in which issues of representation are common currency. Most certainly, Indigenous students and those from the Global South, among others, have been acutely aware of the lack of representation and misrepresentations of their communities and lived experiences, whether it's the legacies of colonialism in Africa or imperial wars in Asia, the Nakba, or other histories. Students' projects address historic exclusions and how they affect their identity formations and their well-being. Like I have had students at OCAD admit to me that they were raised in Muslim cultures that had prejudicial representations of Jews. And when they met Jewish students or professors like me, they had to alter their perceptions. Likewise, Jewish students must be afforded the opportunity to hear Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim experiences and histories. Palestinians must hear their own histories as well. As such, we have to ask, and I reference Judith Butler, who asks, who counts as human? Whose lives count as lives? And finally, what makes for a grievable life? As such, we have to ask, whose lives count at the TDSB, and what stories are we allowed to tell? Obfuscation, avoidance, and silence does not produce informed students and engaged citizens. It is encouraging that anti-Palestinian racism is being recognized, and I urge you to include Nakba Day and training on anti-Palestinian racism in TDSB policy and action.
Ms. Hayel, my apologies, your time has expired. Just looking around the room. No questions of clarification. If you haven't already done so, please share the written delegation so that we can all have an opportunity to read it.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks again. Our next delegate, Amina Shirazi, Brock Public School.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you today. I am not of Palestinian or Israeli origin. I am a TDSB parent.
Please speak right into the microphone. Yeah.
I'm very concerned about the rise of racism against students and teachers on the issue of Palestine and the historical bias against Palestine in our schools. I'm also a lawyer, and I'd like to go through the report that you have been asked to speak today and also reference some of the delegations that you heard on May 15th. I propose 4 solutions to achieve the objectives that are set out in your report. First, please add the definition of anti-Palestinian racism that's been referred to in today's report on numerous occasions on 3 pages. Currently, there is no definition. Please begin with adding that definition to your definition listed alphabetically to the TDSB website. Secondly, immediately implement the rooted curriculum that was created in 2002. It's high time that the objective, which is set out in your report at page 288 and 327, which is about students learn collectively about history the best. The only way to do that is to have the history of Palestine, which has been completely omitted from school curricula. The report's objective of shaping a more inclusive and understanding generation, which is at page 293, cannot be achieved until you have that history as part of the core curriculum. For example, in history, the plight of the Palestinian people is one of the greatest tragedies never taught. In geography, Palestine is invisible on the maps. Educators need resources and training to represent facts, statistics, and documents. Those will speak for themselves. Let the students have access to that so that they can have informed discussion and debate rather than labeling each other and using euphemisms. 3, please prevent the misuse or misappropriation of the term hate to silence, censor, and punish any criticism of the Israeli state policy and Palestinian perspectives. 4th, please know that you have a statutory duty and a legal obligation to address anti-Palestinian racism. The Education Act was amended in 1992 as part of the Ontario government's anti-racism initiative. All these initiatives and accompanying reports and lengthy lists of recommendations will mean little if they have limited influence on the actions of key decision makers. The brazen censorship, deplatforming, and discrimination by TDSB officials from the lowest to the highest levels must come to an end immediately, because screening students' academic work for political controversy has no place in democracy. It's a hallmark of fascism.
Thank you. Ms. Shirazi, your time has expired. I'm just looking around the room. No questions of clarification. Thank you again for coming and delegating this evening.
You're welcome.
Our next delegate, Amina Sultan, Rawlinson Community School.
Hello, sorry, can you hear me? Hello, my name is Amina Sultan, and I'm the mother of 3 Palestinian children at the TDSB. I want to start out today by thanking the board for naming anti-Palestinian racism in its policy plan. And while I'm thanking you, I'm also asking you to keep listening to us, even if the things we say are a little uncomfortable to hear. My husband and I teach our children to be proud of who they are. We're so fortunate in that our family gets to travel regularly to Palestine, where our large, bustling family lives and our children absorb so much love, language, and culture. But also in Palestine, our children see up close the impact of military occupation and apartheid, as they're subjected to it when they're there, and their family is at all times. Since October of last year, our family has watched in horror as children in Gaza who look like our children are displaced, starved, maimed, orphaned, and killed. More than 15,000 children have been killed, and over 80% of all schools in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed. And our board has been silent. But worse, has contributed to a climate where our grieving and traumatized families are dehumanized and our experiences erased. I have 3 stories to share with you quickly. First, this year, we learned that our school's advisory council had invited the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for anti-racism and later anti-Semitism training. We were stunned that at this particular time, a school community would consider bringing in an organization that clearly states on its website, fighting anti-Semitism, standing with Israel, and one that smears those who support Palestinian human rights as hateful and anti-Semitic. And we weren't wrong. The session spread misinformation and conflated those who support Palestinian human rights, like our family, with neo-Nazis. So we've tried to raise our concerns in our school, but have been silenced at every turn. And why? by the fact that this organization is a board-approved vendor. It's openly invited to our schools with the clear approval of the board, despite the fact that it spreads false information and demonizes Palestinians and their supporters. Then, in advance of Nakba Day, a day that commemorates the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in 1948, our son's grade 8 teacher suggested that he might mention the day in the announcements, but he wasn't allowed to do so. Our son was upset, and his younger siblings kept asking, why couldn't he mention the Nakba? And what answer could we give them about not talking about a historical fact, except to say that this is racism, silencing, and erasure? But then I want to tell you about our daughter's grade 3 teacher who invited her to talk about the Nakba. And that day, our 8-year-old spoke about this historical event that has deeply affected her family. She felt proud and heard, and full credit goes to her teacher for allowing her to talk about her lived experience. What I'm asking today is for the board to make meaningful its commitment to end all racism, including anti-Palestinian racism, to take concrete steps of ending partnerships with organizations that propagate this racism, to recognize Nakba Day, and openly allow and encourage learning and teaching about Palestine so that schools can be a place of openness and our families and children can truly be part of their schools and larger community. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation, Ms. Sultan. I'm just looking around the room. No questions of clarification. Thank you again for coming and delegating this evening. Our next delegate, Rabbi David Mesavir. My Vasir. Online. Are you in, you're online?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
I trust that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
You have 3 minutes to delegate. When there's 1 minute left,
Perfect.
You'll hear a chime.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to share from some of my experience and my knowledge. Just to introduce myself, I am a rabbi. I've been a rabbi since 1991. I served 3 different synagogues for close to 25 years. And a little bit more about me is that I lived in Israel for 4 different years of my life. I've visited many times since then. I'll just mention that my son was in the Israeli military. He graduated from medical school there. I speak, read, and write Hebrew. I start my day pretty much every day by reading the news coming from Israel in Hebrew. And I'm here to echo a lot of what you've heard from the last maybe half dozen who have delegated. I'm also a member of Independent Jewish Voices. And I'm here to encourage you to end the relationship between the TDSB and several organizations that directly run counter to what you're trying to do in creating a safe space for the children and the staff in your schools. And I'm going to name them so there's no question about it. One of them is called the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, and the name itself lets you know what their emphasis is. Another is the Friends of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Another is B'nai B'rith Canada. And all of these perpetuate anti-Palestinian racism. They come under the guise often of trying to stop anti-Semitism, but I think upon closer examination, you'll see what their real agenda is, and that is to promote support for Israel and for Zionism in Canada. And it doesn't make sense to give them access to our children in our schools. And I want to point to one thing that I don't think is widely known. On December 8th, the RCMP here in Ontario announced that it arrested on terrorism charges 2 members of a violent neo-Nazi organization called Atomwaffen here in Ontario. And none of those organizations have said a word about it. You can search their websites, look at their press releases. They've done nothing. They've never mentioned this real case of actual anti-Semitism. So they often use talking about anti-Semitism as a way to elicit support for Israel, and that is something that we really should not bring into the environment of our schools. And I thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you so much for your delegation, Rabbi Mavasir. And if I mispronounce your name, please correct me. I'm just looking around the room. No questions of clarification. Thank you again for your delegation. Have a good evening. Our next delegate, Dr. Jen Preston, community member. Online? Please speak
Hello,
louder.
and thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm the parent of a grade 5 non-binary student attending the Grove Community School. I have a master's degree with a research focus on Islamophobia in Canada and a PhD with a research focus on critical race theory and Canadian settler colonialism. I am an educator in the Indigenous Health Department at the BC Public Health Services Authority, where I teach health and social service providers about ongoing forms of settler colonialism and Indigenous specific racism. I support the approval of the Combating Hate and Racism report and would like to share what I see as essential steps to ensure the success of such a strategy, particularly in relation to widespread anti-Palestinian racism throughout the school system. Over the past 9 months, we at the Grove Community School have witnessed a rise in both interpersonal and systemic anti-Palestinian racism. I and other families have seen our principal, superintendent, and executive superintendent, and the TDSB more broadly, respond to an ongoing genocide against Palestinian people and children in particular with silencing. Given that the mandate at the Grove recognizes that all education is political and centers on modeling and teaching elementary school children how to think critically and stand up for social justice, this chilling atmosphere is particularly upsetting and unprecedented. We have seen students significantly impacted by the genocide in Gaza and the denial of basic human rights to Palestinians. As they learn in class about settler colonialism here in Canada, the genocide against Indigenous people, the lack of access to clean water and nourishing food in many Indigenous communities, about how every child matters, our brilliant kids make the connections to the experiences of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Students are then left on their own to navigate their way through this in schoolyard without the support or guidance of those responsible for their education. Without meaningful direction, proper training, or curriculum, we've seen our teachers silenced and ill-equipped to support students through this. We've seen school administrators lack appropriate training, including even basic awareness of Palestinian history, including the Nakba, and culture, let alone any representation of it in schools. Basic awareness of anti-Palestinian racism as an issue, and a lack of how it manifests itself systemically. We've seen the failure of this education system to put its own anti-racism policies into practice to show our children through example that every child's life matters without exception. I share these experiences to stress the importance of policies that name forms of settler colonialism, racism, and genocide, and the importance of appropriate resourcing, training, curriculum development, and responsive systemic changes and updates, as several other delegates have discussed.
Excuse me,
So while I
Dr.
support
Preston,
the adoption of the
your
report,
time has expired. My apologies, your time has expired. I'm just looking around the room to see if there are any questions of clarification and not seeing any. Please feel free to send your written delegation to the same email address that you requested the delegation, so the written delegation can be shared with all trustees if you haven't already done so. Thank you again for delegating this evening.
okay, thank you.
Our next delegate, Arlo Kampf, Danforth Collegiate and Technical Institute.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening to the committee and all present. Just to be clear, I am in no way a representative of Danforth Collegiate and Technical Institute. My son is a student there. My name is Arlo Kempf. I have been a TDSB parent for 23 years. I've been a member of 3 parent school associations, a chair of 2 of those. And I'm also an academic. I'm an education professor, an associate professor at the University of Toronto in the Department of Curriculum, Teaching and Learning. I've had the pleasure of leading one of the country's largest teacher education programs for many years. I've been researching race and education for a number of years, and I have the pleasure of editing a preeminent curriculum journal which focuses on issues of equity in education. And before that, I was a teacher in Toronto, a high school teacher for 7 years. So I come to this conversation with that background. Throughout all of this work and all of this time, my focus and engagement with education has been on attention to student engagement academically, holistically, and student well-being. So when I think about my work, whether it's as a volunteer or as a teacher or as a professor, I acknowledge that that work has inevitably been political. In my view, all teaching and education is indeed political. We sit here, in fact, with elected politicians charged with doing political work as we navigate education. So one of the great parts about doing political work in education is that we have a compass, we have a true north that we can look at, and that is student well-being and student engagement, be it academic or otherwise. And if we think about terms of inclusion and exclusion, we can be guided by what is at this point decades of solid research on these topics. We know that racism needs to be named, needs to be engaged, needs to be dealt with through active anti-racist policies in our schools. We know that when this doesn't happen, the other side of this coin is disengagement, its negative impacts, its negative pressure on well-being. So if we think about the board's commitment to student success and student well-being and student experience in general, to me it is very clear that addressing anti-Palestinian racism, not simply naming it, but engaging in a fulsome address and redress of that topic, naming, saying, enacting, engaging in curriculum, enacting and engaging with the rooted curriculum that's been mentioned previously, and I believe at another delegation, is simply following the research. And to return to this claim that somehow schools are supposed to be places that are not political, we all know that there's no one in this room who in their heart of hearts believes schools are not in some way political. What is clearly political and problematically so is to ignore data and ignore research that has come across the country, from this province, from this fair city of ours, and from this very board, students from this very board. That is a political statement and a problematic one to ignore that when data gets overlooked in the name of some kind of politics. I'm done with my time. Sorry to go over.
Thank you so much for your delegation, Mr. Kemp. Just looking around the room to see if there are any questions of clarification. No questions. We appreciate your delegation. Thank you. The next delegate, Paula Glick, TDSB parent.
Hello?
Online? Yes. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Your trustees and TDSB representatives.
So speak up.
Jewish students and staff do not feel safe. They've been harassed and alienated simply because of their religious
We can't
identity.
hear anything. Could you speak into your microphone and speak up?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Across the TDSB, Jewish students and staff do not feel safe. They've been harassed and alienated simply because of their religious identity. Jews are the #1 targets of hate crime per capita locally, provincially, and nationally, and violent anti-Semitic incidents have more than tripled since October 7th. In the TDSB and across the country, anti-Semitism not only takes on traditional forms of aggression against Jews, it has also manifested as new forms of anti-Semitism, which involve vilifying Israel and harassing students who don't comply with the demands to stand against Israel. This new anti-Semitism threatens Jews by seeking the delegitimization of Israel with the ultimate goal to destroy it. Given this exponential rise in hate that is totally disproportionate to the 2% population of Jewish children in our schools, I was baffled that the TDSB's Combating Hate and Racism report did not provide a more robust strategy for combating this new anti-Semitism. Against this ominous backdrop, I, like many others in the Jewish community, was alarmed at the offhanded manner in which the notion of anti-Palestinian racism, or APR, was included in the strategy document. A simple footnote states that APR was added in response to student and community voices, quote unquote.
Is this how the TDSB makes its policy and strategy decisions? There has been one APR definition circulated publicly to date, and it is not charter compliant. Is it appropriate to be conducting training and building strategy for a concept that we have no approved definition for in any jurisdiction? The documents that introduce APR aren't rooted in evidence-based historical scholarship or TDSB data. These APR documents are not grounded in evidence, but in advocacy and political manipulation. APR aims to promote the erasure of the Jewish state through a variety of means, including false narratives that deny Jewish indigeneity and demonize Israelis as oppressors, land thieves, and settler colonialists, and Israel as a racist and ethnic cleansing apartheid state. These claims are just false, and Jewish kids are paying the price in our schools every day for these falsities. Simply put, the APR construct codifies the very hate that this TDSB anti-hate strategy is meant to combat. APR was designed to disempower the protections of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism and does not help us build healthy school communities. Let's be clear, those inserting APR into TDSB documents are actively working through and from within the board to delegitimize Israel and to drag our public school board into this geopolitical conflict. Children in TDSB classrooms are being encouraged to draw maps that erase Israel. Posters and presentations about the Nakba that revise history and diminish the Holocaust are scheduled intentionally during Jewish Heritage Month. All Jewish initiatives have been informally boycotted, including our trusted Jewish institutions. Jews who are trying to stand up against hate are being dismissed in silence. All of these efforts inevitably result in hate incidences against our Jewish community, children, and teachers. APR is inherently built on a narrative that should not be
my
included in the
apologies,
list of
but your
anti-hate
time
groups.
has
Thank you.
expired. And I'm just looking around the room for questions of clarification. I see Trustee Dawson.
Excuse me, through the chair. Hi, Paula. Thank you for your delegation. I just wanted to clarify something. So you're talking about anti-Palestinian racism, and we've also heard claims that Palestinians are also being discriminated against. So do you believe that they deserve protections?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear that APR is not necessary as a means to protect Palestinians from discrimination. In fact, we can refer to Islamophobia to protect Palestinian Muslims and all Muslims, even if from each other. And Christian Palestinians are also protected by our human rights policies and the TDSB's anti-hate strategies that are already in place. If the claim is that anti-Palestinian racism should be given special status as separate from Islamophobia or other pre-existing protections, then clearly other cultural groups should have similar entitlements. Clearly, many countries, including Israel, or aspiring countries such as the Kurdish entity, would then have to have their own distinct racisms. To make a distinction of one group and not another is a harmful hypocrisy. It is clearly a discriminatory double standard, and I do not think the TDSB should go down that road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Loka-Rothman.
Hi, Paula. Thank you so much for your delegation today. It was a little bit hard to hear on this end, so if you wouldn't mind submitting your delegation in written form as well so that it can be circulated properly. Although I do think I mentioned, I do think I heard you mention something about Jewish indigeneity, and I'm wondering if you can expand on that.
Sure, yeah, thank you for that. Anti-Palestinian racism actually claims a type of anti-Indigenous racism and positions Israelis as settler colonialists. This is revisionist history, and it's designed to erase Jewish indigeneity in history. Credible scholars of the Middle East, historians, archaeologists, they all acknowledge that Israel has been the ancestral home of the Jews for over 3,000 years, with a presence on the land all the way up to its colonization by the Ottoman and British empires. The APR proponents would like to create a false sense of connection between their indigeneity claims and Indigenous peoples in Canada, but this has actually been repudiated by the latter. And I'm going to quote actually here from a recent statement by Anishinaabe leaders, Harry Laforme and Karen Westoul, who say, quote, our treaty partners must enforce the law and codes of conduct on campuses and communities across the country. Codes of conduct consistent with the treaties and the 7 sacred teachings should be developed. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism must be applied by all who fall within areas of federal oversight, influence, and authority. Universities must stop the false narrative. Facts, reality, truth, not fiction, feelings, and ideology should be taught. End of quote. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I don't see any more questions of clarification. Thank you again for your delegation, Ms. Glick. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Our next delegate, Krista Barnes, community member, parent of students, TDSB online. Krista Barnes, are you there? *6 to unmute. Okay, we're going to move on. The next delegate, Victor Vaselev, Target Alpha Canada, online. *6 to unmute. Victor, are you there? Okay, that brings us to the end of our delegations for this evening. Okay. '26 is done. 27. Krista Barnes, *6 to unmute if you're there. We can't hear you. *6, press *6 to unmute so we can hear you. Okay, we don't hear anything. Okay, we're just checking in to see if there's any technical issues that we can resolve. Are you there, Krista Barnes? Okay, so we're going to move on. Victor Vaselev, are you there? Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of our delegations. Okay, are we waiting? Okay, I'm just looking to governance. We're just we're checking if there's anyone in the waiting room. Going back to one of the delegates that didn't speak, Bethel Teki, Center.
Hello.
Okay, Bethel?
Hello. Yes, Bethiel.
Bethiel, you have 3 minutes. When there's 1 minute left, you'll hear a chime. Please
Okay,
begin.
thank you. Could I start now?
Please begin.
Should I start now? Okay.
Yes, please speak up.
I'm just talking on behalf of my experience with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. And I just want to say, ever since I've been connected with them, my life has been a little easier. I got connected by Karen Murray when I hit rock bottom in the system. And because of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, I've had support from Mrs. Marshall for biology, and I did very well. And also from graduation, Asia, who is an Ethiopian lady who represents for the Habesha culture, and I'm very happy that she was one of the people that got hired, but also that represent in the Center for Our Culture, and that made me more welcome, and I felt safe, but also at the same time, being a part of getting a job at the Center of BSSLP also made me prepared for the challenges and how to overcome as a Black young woman and out in the world. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I hope the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement just continues to expand and gets more people out there to each school. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your delegation, Ms. Techie. I'm just looking around for any questions of clarification. And not seeing any, we just want to thank you again for coming and delegating this evening. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Is there anyone in the waiting room? Any of the other delegates? We're just checking to make sure none of the delegates are in the waiting room.
Hello?
Okay, do we have Krista Barnes now?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Just speak up.
Oh, wonderful.
And you'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I am here in support of the motion on annual reporting on student attendance. I'm concerned about student absence rates in our schools. High student absence rates have been observed across Canada and in other countries in recent years. American research has shown that illness is a primary reason for absences from school. Without data to help us understand the reasons for absences within the TDSB, it is difficult to find solutions. As you can imagine, high absence rates impact learning and families. Today, I will speak about my experience, observations from my community, and what we know about the link between school absences and air quality. At our house this school year, we have experienced one round of illness after another. And I know from talking to other parents and neighbors in my community, we aren't the only ones with this experience. My son missed several days of school on several occasions, and there have been periods of time when many children in his class have been away at the same time due to illness. Of course, these multiple absences impact learning and can be disruptive to the classroom. Student absences also have a significant impact on households. When students are ill, it is very disruptive for working parents who need to stay home and tend to their sick children. We also know that high absence rates extend beyond students. High teacher absence rates is a system-wide issue that our superintendent referenced at a parent council meeting earlier this year. Teacher absences also have an economic cost. The Thames Valley District School Board recently found that teacher absences were a significant contributor to their deficit. I suspect they are not unique, and this would be a similar finding in the TDSB as well if tracked. One area that I feel warrants further study and attention, and of which I am concerned about, is the quality of air in our schools and the impact it has on our children's health. Better air quality leads to lower spread of infectious diseases like COVID-19, the flu, and measles. The importance of indoor air quality has been heightened during the pandemic. We know that clean air is important for health. Clean air is also important for learning. We know that schools with better indoor air quality have fewer absences, improved test scores, and fewer reported respiratory and allergy symptoms. One of the challenges of poor air quality is that we can't see the problem. The problem presents itself in different ways, and one way is in high absence levels. Having absence data along with the reasons for the absences is an important puzzle piece that will help us to understand the extent of the problem. I would like to applaud the trustees who have moved this motion forward. I have two suggestions for the motion for your consideration. The motion calls for annual reporting on student attendance and trends. I would like to respectfully request that if the motion is supported, that attendance prior to pandemic is also reported in the initial report. This will be an important baseline measure in order to look at trends. And second, if it would be possible to break down the data by school, that would allow us to see variations within and across communities. This concludes my remarks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your delegation, Ms. Barnes. I'm just looking around the room to see if there are any questions of clarification or any from trustees online. And seeing none, thank you again for your delegation and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Our next delegate, Victor Vasilev, Target Alpha Canada, online. Star 6 to unmute and speak up so we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. You have 3 minutes and you'll get a chime when you have 1 minute left.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Victor and I'm honored to speak here today as a student, a passionate advocate for financial literacy. So before I begin my remarks, I'd like to just thank Student Trustee Bell for inviting me today. Just to give a little bit of background around myself, I serve as the Chief Executive Officer of Target Alpha, which is the largest financial literacy not-for-profit for high school students. So today, as students, I wanted to just talk about our view issue from a student perspective. So we have a very rapidly changing world with a lot of issues like shifting demographics that could have potential impacts on pension systems, to new technologies like fintech. The world of financial education is constantly changing, and it's never been more important to students. So as all of you know, Ontario has already implemented financial literacy as a mandatory part of the Ontario secondary school. However, with this motion, or with any initiative really, the most difficult part is always a smooth execution, and students are actually grasping concepts and will end up with them in the future. So I support this motion to review the TDSB's current approach to teaching literacy for multiple reasons. Firstly, to prepare for their future and to ensure that their financial future is secure, but also preparation for the new mandatory financial literacy test that is being implemented by the Ministry of Education in the 2025 to 26 school year. So once again, I'd just like to thank Trustee Bell for inviting me to speak at today's meeting, and that is the end of my remarks.
Thank you so much, Victor, for your delegation. I see Trustee DeVitas.
Thank you, Victor, for the presentation. The sound was breaking up a little bit. Maybe you can restate why you think this is important for students and what's the gap currently in the system?
Yeah, so we believe it's important for students because there's definitely a gap between sort of the application of financial literacy and just learning it. And I think a big part of how well people are able to actually apply it in the future and how likely they are to take the concepts that they've learned and actually apply them in the future is how it's taught and how we approach it. So the idea of this motion is to review how financial literacy is taught and the current materials and how they're being used. And again, all of this would be in preparation for the new financial literacy test, which is going to be very important as it is going to be a mandatory part of the Ontario secondary school diploma. So it is very important that the financial literacy aspect, which again has been already implemented in many parts of the curriculum, is very solid in TDSB schools to again ensure that we're able to have that financial literacy test and ensure that students are successful at it.
And I see Student Trustee Bell.
Okay. Thank you very much, Victor, for your delegation speaking on behalf of Target Alpha Canada. I wanted to ask you a quick question in regards to your experience within Target Alpha and then also your experience as a TDSB high school student. I want to understand a bit more in terms of what you think the practicality behind financial literacy can really look like, speaking from your perspective in the nonprofit space in Canada and how high school students in particular have really taken upon themselves to fill those gaps in the past, and how nonprofits like Target Alpha can work with public school boards like the TDSB in regards to building that kind of footing within financial literacy.
Okay, thank you. So I can quickly speak to what our organization does and how we engage with students. So Target Alpha has over 50 school chapters. Many of them are in TDSB schools, in which they're usually led by a team of student executives who teaches Target Alpha curriculum. And that curriculum is designed to engage students in financial literacy in the most engaging ways possible. So we have national events, but we also have various measures that we've put to ensure that these club meetings are engaging. And from a student perspective, we believe that it's important that the foundation of financial literacy that's already a part of the Ontario Secondary School Diploma is also fortified. As of course, organizations like Target Alpha, although we try to be in every single school, it's impossible to reach every single student. So we believe that it's important that fundamentals of financial literacy, such as saving and compound interest and investing are really taught to the best of their ability, as these are the concepts that would be most impactful to students in the future, particularly the power of compound interest and just how important that is. It is, for example, to start investing early. That would be something that at least our students that we teach have found to be very useful, and have often been shocked by just how important compound interest, for example, and getting started early with compound interest is for their future, whether it's for a goal such as a house or retirement. So as a result, we're constantly reviewing how we teach financial literacy. We're constantly trying to make it more engaging and seeing if truly our material is able to impact our students in the way we intend and whether it's engaging enough. So we believe that, again, in preparation for things such as the mandatory financial literacy test, the school boards, such as the TDSB, should take a look at the way it's taught in various schools and the materials that we have right now, and try to see how we can improve that leading up to the bigger event, which is, again, the new test in the 2025 to 26 school year.
Thank you. Student Trustee Bell, your time has expired, and I do not see any other questions of clarification. Thank you again for your delegation, Victor. It was very much appreciated. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of our delegations. We don't have anyone else waiting. No? Okay. So that brings us to the end of our delegations. We very much appreciate all of the delegates that came here and spoke to us this evening. So we are going to move on in the agenda to the first staff report, the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, Year 2 Update 2024.
Test. Thank you, and through the chair. It's my pleasure to introduce this particular report that represents the second annual report from the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. The center, in so many ways, represents a trailblazer type of programming that was created through the TDSB and has, at the end of the day, done things that we knew needed to be done, but at times we're afraid in order to venture onto that path. What I want to emphasize, because I know that time is limited, but it's the notion of students and the impact on Black racialized students within the TDSB. When you have the opportunity to go to the Center of Excellence, one of the things that is most profound is when you engage with young students, and you heard some of them this evening, they tell you a narrative of a place where they feel that they belong. They tell you a narrative of a place where they feel that they are expected to do well and achieve at the highest level. And they tell you a narrative where they feel that the skills that they learn, the mentorship that they gain, and the skill sets, and most importantly, the confidence that they build, they're able to take into the next level of their lives and of their careers. And I think that's the impact that the center has had. So it's my pleasure to hand it over to System Superintendent Murray to introduce the team and to also speak to this report.
Thank you, everyone, and good evening. I just wanted to start by giving a little special thank you to all those who came and delegate about their experience with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. We're going to go as quickly and succinctly as we can, but we're very proud of being able to give a report around what has happened and the impact of the work we've been doing over the last little bit. I'm here with one of my staff, Tanitia Monroe, as well as our senior manager for research and development, David Cameron, who's going to help us out. I know I still have staff. I have some staff here in the building, and I do have some online, so just in case. We can go to the next slide, please. Awesome, thank you. So basically, just an overview of who we are. We need to be very proud as a district, as a board, because the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, not only is it a fulfillment of a promise to the diverse Black families and communities in the TDSB, but it is the first of its kind that is publicly funded in North America. So it's something uniquely done. And one of the things that we're very proud of, based on the work that we do, is that we partner not only with students, but we partner with families and we partner with community to identify not only the challenges, but think about what are those actions that we can put in place to improve students' experiences and lived realities here in the district. Next slide, please. The center is governed by 9 mandates. Those mandates speak to students, they speak to families and communities, and it also speak to system and staff. We are moving forward to try to honor each mandate. We haven't reached all yet, but we work closely with students, families, and community to try to operationalize them as best as we can. Next slide, please. I wanted to show a little journey of where we've been. So in 2017, there was the Enhance Inequity Task Force, and within that, one of the recommendations were that had came over and over and again in years around the possibility of a space that can honor the lived experiences of Black students and ensure that we really looked at the data and be responsive to the data. In 2020, many of you are new, but this same room in this building, we passed unanimously at board the development of the center. We opened virtually because of COVID in 2021. And then in 2022, we finally opened in person. Last year was year 1 of our update. And of course, this year, we're sharing with you what we've done. And every year we've been bigger and better. Next slide. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Karen. What you see here is what we did is we put an aggregate together. I recognize that we don't compare 2018 to 2023 in EQAO because they changed the test form from a paper and pencil to a digitalized version, and it's a very different assessment. However, those proportions are at level 3-4, a threshold number for the province, the provincial standard. It's a B- standard. And we put them together in aggregate to give a sense, a benchmark sense of where students are, and then looked at it by race. You can see that Indigenous students, self-identified Indigenous students, Black students, Latino, Latina, and Latinx, and Middle Eastern students are also happen to be the students that have the highest proportion of socio and economic challenge in the board. And there is always an association with student outcome and socioeconomic challenge. On the good side of this is the positive side is you can see a growth from grade 3, which is the blue bars, to grade 6, which is the orange bars, in relation to anywhere from 5 to 9 percentage point difference. It does, however, go down as students move into high school in grades 7 and 8 into transition into high school. And it's also clearly, it's a clear indication why the center exists. And the work that we're doing in relation to, or Black communities doing and Black students are doing in relation to student success and Black brilliance. Next slide. This is a look at 13 years, 13 cohorts of information, of data following one of the main indicators, a really an important indicator of student success at the latter half of, or the late secondary schools, is whether or not you apply to post-secondary school opportunities. It's an indicator of interest in career paths. It's a really important indicator for secondary school students and for public education in K-12, regardless of which jurisdiction. And you can see here the growth. Our Black students are the fastest improving group in there. There's a 19 percentage point difference from 2007, which is the blue chart, in relation to the proportion of students that apply to post-secondary school opportunities compared to 2020, which is the orange bar. That's a significant move, and it's indicative of a move in our Black communities in relation to pursuit of career paths. Next slide. Finally, the last indicator that I'll put into this space, again, just to kind of frame, it's a policy space, a policy and a program space like the Center of Excellence. It's very difficult. It's a small organization given the size of our school board. It's very difficult to understand how they're reshaping discourse around Black brilliance and around Black student success. This is a very interesting indicator. It comes out of the student census. It's everybody in essentially all our students have indicated at what level that they get opportunities to engage in text or resources that reflect their identity, that are participating in clubs that reflect their identity or their culture or their ethnicity, and see guest speakers. And you can see here the high proportion compared to everybody in the school board in relation to these opportunities reported for Black students. And it will be reflected in the rest of the presentation in what the students have said is very important in terms of STEM and in terms of success in schooling. So this is a really important indicator that really does reflect what the center is contributing to TDSB.
And I just wanted to add before we leave this conversation about data, and I'm going to thank Executive Superintendent Sparopoulos for some of this conversation. And so one of the things we learned is that as we support Black brilliance in all schools, the proportion of suspensions that were given to Black students has decreased significantly by 7% points from 32 to 25%. So when we see data like this where students are talking about seeing themselves in these various different ways and that identity and culture is happening within their spaces, it does help about engagement in school. So thank you, Exec Superintendent Sparopoulos, for that data. Can we get to the next slide, please?
Okay, so I will be talking a bit about the focus area for the center. So since 2016, 2017, student and parent census, there has been intentional work for everyone across the board, including ourselves, to ensure that the well-being and engagement for Black students are met. And so the data that Dave shared earlier supported the focus areas for the Center of Excellence. Next slide, please. So some of our key actions continue to align with the center's mandates, and I won't go through all of them. But we continue to identify and develop and facilitate culturally responsive and relevant healing practices for groups of students. We also continue to use evidence-based to highlight promising practices and provide supports, as you heard earlier from our delegates, to combat anti-Black racism, and to identify barriers to access. Next slide, please. So for focus area 1, which is about students, the student leadership and programming was the core theme that drove our work. So 3 areas are student voice, graduation pathways, and caring connection. And the center continues to provide opportunities for Black students by partnering with and collaborating with community organizations and educational institutions. And for Caring Connections, the participating community partners at the Center of Excellence continue to exhibit ethical care for Black students and provide positive experiences through programming. And finally, one of my favorites, Student Voice. Given the assumption that student voice can increase student engagement in K-12 education, such efforts to give students more ownership of their education may be linked to improvement in student outcomes. So for example, the success of programs such as the Black Girls Book Club and the Black Student Summer Leadership Program and Youth Participatory Action Research continues to provide students the opportunity to actively engage in conversations with educators about their perspectives and experiences. The implementation of these strategies matters greatly to the Center of Excellence, and efforts to incorporate student voice through different avenues, including professional learning opportunities. Next slide, please. So these are some of the leadership programs, like images from the leadership programs. So the first one is the pathway to veterinary medicine. And the second one is around student voice and caring connection, which is the Black Girl Book Club.
And we, every week, we have coaches who are in our Black Student Success and Excellence schools. You heard one of the delegates affectionately call it BSSE. And those programs we've been running for a very long time. And so we're anywhere from kindergarten to grade 12. And every other week, our team focuses on those schools and those various classrooms, engaging in student programming and learning, as well as initiatives that we do in terms of larger system-wide. Next slide, please. In terms of family engagement and involvement, that's one of the areas we've really been focusing on this year. We have something called Webinar Wednesday, and we work with so many different departments across the district to bring to families some key information. We've worked with special ed, we've worked with the mental health team, et cetera, et cetera. We've done ABC of literacy, which was really well attended, that really talked about what does it look like to raise a reader with texts that are responsive and relevant. And then, of course, we had the amazing author, award-winning playwright Trey Anthony supporting us through Black Mental Health Week in a session that focus about mental health and wellness for families. Next slide, please. In terms of staff professional learning and system-wide initiatives, one of the things, and we shared it within the package that we sent, is that one of the mandates specifically focuses on anti-Black racism. And so therefore, we find a variety of ways in which to do so in terms of work with students, or to work with staff. Sometimes the professional learning is coming through our partnerships and the partners in which we support. Some are provided through the work that we do through the center and the team at the center. Next slide. Community engagement and outreach. We just wanted to share a few pieces. So one is that we had a great opportunity in the fall to have our students meet with many post-secondary engagement spaces, anywhere from college to university. And so they were able to get hands-on conversations around what do I need to do to reach in those places. What is really more powerful is that the colleges and universities provided an opportunity for students to learn how they are setting conditions in their spaces to welcome them into the space. Next slide.
Okay, so moving forward, we continue to examine and implement student feedback. So Black students are able to share their feedback through program evaluation, and we solicit feedback and opportunities for suggestions and implementation of all programs, right? So all the recommendations come from the students and all the adjustments that we need to make for our programs and moving forward. We also continue to do best practices. So working alongside educators to build strong school community which affirm Black students' identity. Post-secondary preparation is another. So the Center of Excellence will continue to partner with post-secondary institutions to bring awareness and support to Black students and to ensure that when they land there, they are okay, right? They have enough resources and networking and also scholarships. And finally, research-based student improvement strategies. The Center of Excellence, alongside various departments, find ways to comprehensively monitor Black students' progress and unique challenges through evidence-based qualitative and quantitative analysis, just to capture their overall experiences. This includes like their sense of belonging, caring connections, and how they're faring out in schools.
And I think the final thing I'll say is this. I just want to thank you. We have 21.5 staffs, and they do so much. And our students' testimony can say we work weekends, evenings, and in the day. Whenever a student calls, we are there for them. And I just want to say that the group of staff, still, as much as we do, we still can't reach and be able to honor all the needs that come our way from students, families, sometimes even communities. So thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much for that report. I have Trustee Pei is the first trustee on the speakers list. Trustee Pei.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I want to thank the staff for presenting such a, comprehensive report. But I do have a lot of questions. So, if I won't be able to finish my question, could you please kindly put me back to the list, Madam Chair?
Yes, will do. Go ahead.
Okay. I haven't read this report. I have a few questions to ask. I'm really a number person. Okay. First of all, I want to mention a few examples regarding the particular numbers really interested me. First, I want to ask staff regarding the Sunnybrook Meet the Scientist program. It says only 8 students participated. So I just wonder why. Why is only 8 students interested in this program? It looks to me as a very, fun program. Why only 8 students benefit or really participate? What's the reason for that? Can staff, through Madam Chair, could staff give me some explanation for that?
Staff is going to respond. Thank you.
Yes, I do. So not every program is open to all students. So Meet the Scientist is similar to another program we have where the specific group, like I'll give an example, we have a relationship with Sunnybrook Hospital and they give us a target amount of students in which can be supported through the relationship. So some of the programs that we're sharing are also ones that may have a cohort number attached to it. I hope that helps.
Through Madam Chair, as I understand, this is a virtual program, right? Is this a virtual program?
Meet the Scientists, one is virtual, but some of them are face-to-face and in person.
I'm asking the one you put in the report. Is that virtual session?
Meet the Scientists is virtual.
Yeah,
yes.
it's like I'm mentioning the November and December 2022 session. Is that virtual or in person?
Virtual.
Okay, it's a virtual. What's concern for virtual session? We only have 8 participants. Why we not expand the program to hundreds or even thousands students? Why we ask? We allow the hospital to give our constrictions.
So I was, and through you, Chair, the response to that is we begin a program with a organization, and then we pilot it, and then we work with the organization to expand it. So this is one of the ones that we've just started our relationship with the aim to be expanding it after.
Okay, so you said you're going to expand. Are we expanding this program to 100 students, allow to 100 students to participate? Or what's the status for this program right now?
So thank you for the question through the chair. At this point in time, part of what we normally do, and you see in many of the reports, is a full program analysis at the end. So we need to be able to go through and do that type of process before we make any decisions around the actual number for expansion. And we also need to take into consideration the needs of the actual organization that is supporting this opportunity for our students. So we wouldn't be able to provide you with a specific number at this time. Thank you.
So, okay, through Madam Chair, when you'll be able to provide the space number to me then? You know what, I'm telling you, I have a science background, okay? I have a PhD in dental biomedical sciences. Like, I want as many as a Black student to pursue this wonderful career, this rewarding career. So I want to expand the program. So I want to know the staff, are you making the effort to expand the program?
Just listen to it?
Through you, Chair, I can say yes. One of the things that the entire team is doing within the next couple of weeks will be to go back and evaluate every program that we engaged with this year. I also want to signal that this is not the only program tied to science that we have and is working with. One of the things we didn't spend a lot of time speaking about, but we have a Black Student Summer Leadership Program that have over 100 students. We have 100 students coming over the years. We have done more than 300 students, and in that, they also have opportunity to engage with some of these same science partners.
Okay, all right. My last question is regarding the picture you put in this report. I do see that the Black scientists, teaching the Black students. Very beautiful pictures, but I don't know how you take the picture when their session conducted virtually. Are you taking the? Are those TDSB students? Are those like like a Sunnybrook Black scientist? Or so like I just feel curiosity is where did you obtain those pictures?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. Some of the pictures represent individuals that are in person, and some represent those that are virtual. It's a combination of both for a variety of different pictures. Thank you.
So you're pretty sure those pictures are taken from TDSB students? You're 100% sure of that?
Thank you, through the chair. We have a variety of pictures. Maybe you could provide context around which specific ones. Our understanding is that, yes, those are our TDSB students, but maybe if you provide a little bit of clarity about which one you're speaking of, we'll be able to provide you with greater clarity about the answer to that question. Thank you.
Okay, I have the picture, say page 23, Black student in a STEM classroom. Are those students are TDSB students?
Okay. Thank you so much for the clarification. Really appreciate that. No, those represent stock photos. Thank you.
Stock photos. Okay. So what about this page 25? Stock photo as well?
Through you, Chair, there's pictures in the reports that were stock photos. And
So,
then there's
through
pictures.
you, Madam Chair, I just want to confirm his stuff. All those photos you're providing this report are stock photos.
I'm sorry. We would be happy to go through each of the pictures that are provided in the report in order to make a determination and provide that information to you at a later time. Thank you.
So why is the later time? You provide the report. So you, Madam Chair, I think the staff provide report. They don't even know where the photo come from. Who actually produced the report? I want to say the person who produced the report.
Trustee
Thank you
Pei.
so much for that question. I really appreciate you questioning our integrity on that. Unfortunately, staff has written every single piece of this particular document. And with respect to the pictures, we are happy to provide you with clarification on every single one of the photos. Not right now, but we're happy to go through each of the photos and provide it to you in Trustee Weekly, if the trustee would like. Thank you.
I think
Sorry,
we do
Madam
have
Chair.
a point of order.
This is a public
Excuse
meeting.
me, Trustee Pei.
I think the public have the
We
right
have
to
a
know
point
where
of
the
order,
photo come
Trustee
from.
Pei, so I'm going to have
Yeah.
to ask you to pause for a moment. We have a point of order. Trustee D.
My
DeVitis.
point of order, I don't understand the line of questioning. The trustee is allowed to ask about clarifications. I don't understand why the board's time is being taken up with this line of questioning. This is a report that celebrates the work of a department. If there are questions about statistics and things like that, the origin of the pictures, I think the line of question is trying to question the legitimacy of the report. And if that's what it is, to be honest, that's
A
very
point of order,
disrespectful
Madam
to-
Chair. I
You can't do
never
a point of order of my own
questioned the
point of
legitimacy
order.
of this report. I'm questioning, where we get it, why we're not taking some real photo from our TDSB student to show their real achievements, to show their passion, to
Thank you
show
for the
their love for
question.
science. Why we're not making effort to
Thank
do
you
that?
for that question, Trustee Pei. I'm going to give staff the opportunity to respond, but I just want to remind everyone of our code of conduct. I feel the tone is getting, a little bit, it doesn't sound respectful to me. And I'm going to ask that the tone remain respectful. So I'm going to put it over to staff to respond to your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Through you, Chair. What I would say is that we do have photos of things that happen within classrooms and schools, but we don't always put those photos on our reports. And that's for many, many different reasons. So what we do most times when we share a report, we use board-approved stock photo, and that is what we put there instead of a specific child on those reports. When we do things in person, like today, this evening, and we brought a slide deck, we share actual photos of an experience or a moment with others. And we do that also when we engage in sharing our newsletters, and people would be able to see what actually students who are involved with us are engaged in. But in our reports that tend to go in very far places, we tend to follow the board-approved stock photos as we put them in. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you. Student Madam Chair, I want to ask is the next question would be, how many students were really served by the program?
Can I have clarification in which program, or is it how many
I
students
mean
are served within
total
the
program,
center?
because yeah, for the center. Yeah, how many students really benefited from the program that's provided by the center? I just want to know total number, students, and total days or hours.
I can't provide that number, unfortunately, because we move in many different ways. So, for example, as I said, we are in schools, and in our schools with our graduation coaches, we have a set amount of students, which covers a lot of high schools in the district. At the same time, we have K-12 coaches who are moving in schools as well. And then we have those programs that are after school that comes to the center or virtually online. And we also have other avenues in which we work with students. So to calculate for you exactly the number of students we work with, I wouldn't be able to do so at this moment.
Okay. Mr. is that possible staff can provide me the number at a later date? I just want to know, is the total budget, so my next question would be, okay, let me want the next question. What's the total budget for this year or for last 3 years? I just want to understand, how the program being,
Trustee Pei, your
budgeted.
time has expired.
Mhm. Yeah, Madam Chair, my time is expired, but
Yes.
is that staff can answer my questions? I finished my questions.
Thank
but
you, Trustee Pei. Did we want to get a response? Trustee McLean. Oh, pardon me, Trustee Pei. Did staff want to provide a brief response to Trustee Pei's question? I believe the director wanted to say something.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I believe it is in the detailed department information that was provided to trustees. We will endeavor to find the page and to point that out to trustees in order to answer the question.
Thank you, Director. Our next trustee on the speakers list is Trustee McLean.
Thank you, and through the
Madam Chair, so I asked to put myself back to the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pei. Trustee McLean?
Thank you, and through the chair. I've been here 6 years, and it's not as easy to find victories in this room as I hoped it was going to be when I signed up to do this. That being said, the decision we made to support this initiative and the success that has come from it, for me, is easily one of the big success stories of my time here. So I want to thank everyone, staff, for the report, for the work that's being done at the center, and for the realization of what was possible. Like, it was, a lot of times you get created a vision, and then the practical reality of that doesn't, meet the vision, and it's kind of just been the opposite kind of thing. It's been really cool to see what's transpired. I noticed on the slide there was a reference to the Martin Grove Collegiate School Council, and it was, really well received. I had the privilege of hearing from members of the community that were really excited to learn more and to have engaged with the students. And it was a big, I just wish I would have learned beforehand, so I would have had the opportunity to go on and see for myself. I do have questions, though, however, as it pertains to proximity. We operate geographically on a very large board. And I'm not being critical of where it is, because it doesn't matter where it is in our board. Some would be closer than others, and there would be challenges associated with those who weren't as close as they might like to be and have the access to the wonderful programs and supports that are happening there. Proximity is a big deal as it pertains to, you know, an abundance of things that we offer. And I suspect that that's the case with the supports with the center. So my initial question comes around, are there thoughts about creating satellites or smaller versions in different places throughout the board so that we can spread the magic around a little bit? And I appreciate that virtual opportunities would work for, you know, for everybody, and that's the intent. But what I learned most about my virtual experience is I don't want to do it, and I would much prefer to be in person and to see. So is there plans or discussions or consideration being given to expanding to different parts of the district?
Through you, Chair. Thank you so much for that question, and thank you for the compliment. Yes, that comes to us often, so we've been trying to be creative. So that's why we engage in a hybrid model. And we also, for certain programs, the community partners help support us in having students be part in person. And some of the experiences we try to, hence why I'm saying we have such a unique design that not everything happens at the center. So there are times when things are happening in local schools based on the fact that we have staff in those local schools that support us as well. So, but we are, that conversation about moving even geographically space in the West, as well as the fact that we're right now stationed in the East, does come to us often by our community. And I wanted to, and I'm remiss to say this, but we do have an Elders Council, and they support us greatly, and that conversation has happened there as well.
Thank you. I'm good.
Hello? So we are going to be calling a recess. We have a special board meeting starting at 8 p.m. So PSSC, we're going to go into a recess and continue after the recess. At 8 p.m., we'll be starting our special board meeting. So we're in recess.